Okay.
There's a DNR access. So I want that somewhere, if it comes up, stated on public record. At least the question asked.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to East Bay Charter Township Planning Commission. This is a special meeting on August 20th. We'll begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. There's a nice echo, too, with all of you. I feel very stadium surrounded today. And could we kick it off with a roll call, please?
Here.
Present.
Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Edwards.
Here.
Walters.
Present.
And Leonard.
Here.
Noted that Ferguson is absent and excused.
Thank you. Next, under item number 4 is review for conflict of interest. Anyone have anything to disclose with either of the agenda items? Having none, we'll move on to approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda of Tuesday, August 20th, 2024 of the East Bay Charter Township Planning Commission.
Support.
Thank you. We have a motion by Mindy, supported by Rhonda, for approval of the agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Next up is approval of the meeting minutes from August 7th.
I'll move to approve the meeting minutes of August 7th, 2024 regular meeting.
Support.
What about the special, the site review meetings?
Did we have? We had two.
Two of the packet.
Yeah, we just need it in the motion, don't we?
Oh.
So generally, we approve it all at once.
Yeah, we've been looping them all in.
Okay. Amend that to also include the special meeting minutes.
I bet Renee's on board with this.
Support.
We have a motion by Paul, seconded by Renee, for approval of the August 7th regular meeting and site visit meetings as well. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Up next is public comment, and again, just for everyone's information, we'll have opportunities for public comment later under the Elmbrook public comment period for a public hearing. And if any of those of you, we're really not looking at a public hearing for the zoning ordinance rewrite, but if you have comments tied to that, then we'd love to have an opportunity to speak at those now. So if anyone would like to come forward, feel free to come up to the lectern. You've got about 3 minutes.
Is this live? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good evening, Commissioners. My name's Ted Wendling. I live at 2011 East River Road, about a mile from Garfield in East Bay Township. I'm here to give public comment on your draft zoning ordinance, specifically Section 4.36, temporary dwelling units, which, if passed, would permit property owners and their guests to camp on private property for up to 7 days and up to 60 days in any calendar year. Directly across from my 3-acre property is a vacant parcel of land that is on the river and is about 1/3 of an acre. The property is owned by Elizabeth Davis. Her boyfriend is Eddie Fisher, a former Traverse City fire chief, who's on more than one occasion offered to buy a small parcel of land that I own, which abuts Davis's 1/3 acre. I've told him I'm not interested in selling to him. One of the reasons that I've declined to sell to him is because the two of them, since at least 2017, when I moved to East Bay Township, have allowed a large gathering of their friends, up to 25 people, jammed cheek to jowl, to host a mini Woodstock festival on this spit of land on the last weekend of July. This raucous gathering, which includes loud music until the wee hours of the morning, even occurred during the height of COVID. No masks, no social distancing, and no concern for their or others' welfare. Both last year and this year, my neighbor, Tricia Fry, who lives on the other side of the river from Ms. Davis's property, has called the police in the middle of the night because the campers' carousing has disturbed her and her guests. Both of us have also notified your zoning administrator that these people are violating the township's camping ordinance by parking an RV, pitching numerous tents, and parking several vehicles on this tiny piece of land. I can't imagine that this is the type of conduct that matters of the Planning Commission sought to greenlight when you were drafting this new zoning ordinance. My first request is that you delete this section of the ordinance and begin enforcing your current anti-camping ordinance. If you're disinclined to do that, I would ask that properties on which you would permit camping would be at least 1 acre, or that you somehow limit the number of campers based on the size of the property. I would also note that your draft ordinance specifically allows, quote, property owners and guests to camp on private property in East Bay Township. Neither Ms. Davis nor Mr. Fisher have joined these campers at any of their outings. I'm not simply being a NIMBY here. I recognize that Ms. Davis has every right to allow her friends to kayak, swim, fish, and otherwise enjoy the property she owns on the river. However, she does not have a right to do what she has been doing, flagrantly flouting the township's zoning regulations and ducking and ignoring directives from the township to stop this conduct. Thank you for allowing me to comment. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Ted.
Good evening. My name is Brandon Folensky. I am an East Bay Township resident, Arbutus Lake board member, and I am addressing you this evening as a board member for the organization Protect Forest Lakes. I believe you've all received an email from our organization laying out our position on 6 aspects of the proposed zoning ordinance, and I won't belabor the issue tonight by reading through what you've already received, but I will highlight those issues very quickly. Our organization believes that temporary dwelling units would be damaging to our district and should not be permitted in the Lakes area. In regards to the Lakes area, Boardman River, and natural area districts, we would also recommend that accessory dwelling units and outdoor recreational facilities also be excluded from those districts. And then 3 other areas that we would like to see additional discussion and changes made would be regarding accessory uses. The current criteria, an accessory use shall not generate any effects on neighboring properties, including but not limited to noise, parking, traffic, glare, or dust greater than or more burdensome than such impacts from the main use on the property has been removed from the proposed draft, and we'd like to see that reinstated. And then lastly, the remaining 2 issues would be marinas. We'd like to see that language cleaned up a little bit, potentially adopting Eagle's definition for marina. And then very last would be the permissive language surrounding retaining walls. We would like to see that language removed entirely. And I believe that section is 3.5. It talks about building extensions. And then I would also like to submit for the record that our petition, which was provided to you last evening, has garnered another 16 individuals, so the new total is 170 individuals, and I'll submit that. Thank you all for your service, and realize that the end is near, and as they say in the running community, finish strong. Thank you.
Thanks, Brandon.
Good evening, Judy Nemitz, East Bay Township. Whitman said it's more important to understand than be understood. There are a couple questions I ask you to better understand when reviewing the ordinance items tonight. Not one decision maker has asked information or researched the historical reasons the Planning Commission, Township have not permitted the uses mentioned in the petition. Some 40 years ago, some of them were enacted. The prohibited uses have stood the test of time after being reviewed by many planning commissions and many board of trustees before you. Why? Folks, there are valid reasons for not permitting the following uses mentioned in the permission, and I did write you 2 letters stating those. The other thing is the master plan. When working on this, let's ask about the master plan. Claire asked us to look 5, 10, 20, 25 years in advance. Once again, the decision makers propose changes without any future thoughts as to the pros and cons of what's down the road with these changes in ordinances. The master plan survey, let's talk about that. The preservation and protection of the natural areas scored very, very high on the survey regarding the master plan. No one mentioned anything in that survey about creating a Wally World. So I really think we've really got to look at the recreational part of this, as the consultant said. Not one person said, let's create that. I agree, no temporary dwellings, as stated in the petition, marinas, according to the language in the petition, keep the current accessory dwellings language, and no accessory dwellings in the lakes area, do not allow recreational facilities as stated by the consultants. Remove the permissive language regarding retaining walls, and add the dark sky compliance for all new residential builds and renovations. We don't have to go and grandfather that in. Please base your consideration on valid, sound planning principles of health, safety, and welfare. Not what you, not what your family, not what your neighbors want, but what is for the greater good by zone and the future and how it pertains to the master plan. Please do not permit these changes in the current ordinance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judy.
Hi, we're Gail and Dave Mason from 2612 Wilsey Road. 30 years ago, we purchased 7.7 acres of land on Wilsey Road. It was zoned agricultural at the time, and we assumed that we could pretty much do what we wanted with it. We had horses for a few years. We farmed the land while we had the horses. And since then, we've just been enjoying nature. I have lots of gardens. I garden organically. We don't use pesticides or chemicals. And we have had family that have come up and spent some time with us in their campers, in their tents. One particular has been up 2 years in a row for the entire summer. They come up, young couple, they come up here to work, and they have a business. And if they had to pay for temporary housing, hotel, Timber Ridge Resort, any other option in the area, they would not be able to run their business because it would break them. They wouldn't make any money. So we let them stay at our place, and they run their summer business, which is at the horse camp in Williamsburg. 2 years ago, or last summer, we decided to start what is called a hip camp, which is a website where people advertise their property. Some are strictly driveways in rural areas. Others are large parcels of property. We're somewhere in between there. So we thought it would be a great idea to get a few more people up here to enjoy Traverse City, everything we have to offer, our beautiful piece of land, and make a few dollars to supplement our Social Security, which is what we live on. And maybe we can get away to see our daughters who are in South Carolina and Florida once in a while, because we have no family here anymore. It's just us. My husband has a brother, but he doesn't count. Anyway, well, 2 weeks ago, we got a letter that we're in violation of the ordinance pertaining to camping, that we're not allowed to have any campers on our property because we're under 40 acres. That would include ourselves in our own motorhome. We can't even pull it out of our pole barn and set it up and spend the night in it because it's a violation of the ordinance. Last week at the township board meeting, there were several people on the board who said, oh my God, I've been in violation for years because I camp in my trailer in my backyard all the time in the summer. I think it's not fair. I understand East Bay Township is very diverse. We have very high-density areas, subdivisions, communities, where you don't want a whole bunch of people in campers in your backyard. And this 1/3 acre parcel on Borden River makes total sense, or nonsense, I should say. We have almost 8 acres. We can't see any of our neighbors' homes. None of our neighbors can see our home from their home. You have to drive by up on the road to see our house or to see what's going on behind us. The campers that we've had have been very respectful. We have had no complaints from anyone. They pretty much are there to sleep at night. Campers like to have a campfire, so we went out and bought some fire rings so that it would be safe having fires out in our field. It's an old hayfield that we purchased 30 years ago. So everything is very safe. We monitor it. Everybody gets a 5-gallon bucket of water to keep at their campsite, so if there's any inkling that any fire is going to spread, they're immediately to douse it. And this has been going great for 2 years, and all of a sudden, we have to shut it down. I had to cancel reservations. I had to call people and tell them they can't come because we're not allowed to use our property the way we see fit. Apparently, our property doesn't really belong to us. It belongs to the township because they determine what we can and cannot do. We understand, we haven't seen this proposal that you have to change this ordinance, but we understand that you're looking at doing something, and we ask that, I guess, listening to what other people are saying, and what we've talked with Claire, and we talked with Bill, and we've talked with numerous different people, it seems like it's not a one-size-fits-all type of ordinance. I think you need to look at doing something for high density and something different for rural like we are. Or I think we're called low density, right? Residential now, we were agricultural when we bought. Somewhere along the line it got changed. And so that's what we're here to ask you guys to please consider. It's not a one-size-fits-all. We don't all wear the same size shoe, and we don't all own the same kind of property. And we welcome anybody to come over and see our property. We would offer to sit with you and talk with you personally, individually, and give you our thoughts and ideas, and maybe listen to what your thoughts and ideas are.
If you pulled in there right now, you would never know that's a campground.
Yep.
Well, it's not a campground
It's not a campground,
that
but-
you think of. It's our yard, it's our
Right.
property, and we've
Right.
just allowed people to stay there.
And the whole thing got to me was, our daughter's sitting here right now, her camper's on the property. She got married here.
They had a big wedding, 200 people came up for the wedding, spent tons of money in the area, and now we had to call her, she's on her honeymoon, and tell her she needs to get her camper out of our yard.
By September 6th.
By September
And I
6th.
asked for variance, can we give us another 4 or 5 days? Because we had some reservations already. Nope. If you don't do it by the 6th, I'm going to give you a ticket. And that's
Both of
bullshit.
us tickets.
That's bullshit. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
be careful.
I'm sorry.
Thank you for the feedback. We appreciate it.
Thank you for listening.
Yep. Take care.
Greg Colezza, East Bay Township resident and on Spider Lake. I'd like to make just a few comments in terms of the ordinances that protect our lake shores and waterways in terms of the buffer zones and the natural environment. Over the last year, since I've been retired, I've spent more time, and I've had the privilege to do that. I feel blessed. And during that period of time, several times a week, I hear the whine of chainsaws, the roar of chippers, as more shoreline and lakefront property trees are being cut. Several times a month, I hear excavators and bobcats carving away the natural shorelines for major changes to the shoreline, as well as the nearshore buffer zone for perhaps an expansive view of the lake or a manicured suburban-like lawn like they used to have downstate. Some of these projects by the property owners have actually received permits. Not all of them, but even those that are may frequently and ultimately be extended beyond the terms of the permit that's been administered. After the fact even, evading the limits of the issued permit. Township's approval and best practices to our waters and our environment are being ignored. The new zoning ordinance that you've enacted, I herald as having some good points. And I've argued for stronger language to increase the environmental protections. And some members of this committee actually were affirmative in supporting that. But I think that the language should be even stronger to give more stringent protection to our natural resources, to mandate restoration of trees and the natural lake shore in the buffer zone especially, in that critical area that protects the waters of our lakes as well as our groundwaters. Not just portions that are disturbed by, a current project of a build or a renovation, but the entire, buffer zone. I think this would be critical and certainly very important. The new ordinance should prevent the building of additional retaining walls, especially in that buffer zone. I see that major earthworks are being done on a monthly basis around the lake on multiple properties. And probably they shouldn't be allowed even under the guise of an engineering necessity. I urge that the zoning language should be strengthened to protect our critical but vulnerable lakes, rivers, and streams, which are the source of so much of the attraction to life in northern Michigan that we enjoy and are privileged to be able to enjoy, as well as to attract tourists to our fine area, as well as contribute somewhat disproportionately to the tax base of this East Bay Township, as you well are aware. It only takes a few minutes to cut a tree, a few days to really alter and damage a shoreline. It would take a lifetime or even a century to restore it. So let's aggressively protect what we have and really try and reestablish what's been lost. And thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Greg.
Steve Largent, East Bay Township resident, and echo what's been said already as far as protecting, and I recommend that we just move slowly because it's hard to undo what's been done or damaged. And having grown up on Spider Lake and working professionally on the restoration and protection of the Borden River for over 30 years, I've seen how much change there's been, and it doesn't go back. And once it's done. And so I'd recommend that you sincerely look at the Friends of the Forest Lakes, which I'm a part of, look at their suggestions, and please incorporate some of these points, especially, as far as temporary dwelling units and accessory dwelling units. Enforcement is extremely difficult, and that's the biggest thing I've seen over the years is the lack of enforcement. And we need enforcement. We need to make sure that, what we put into these ordinances are upheld because, again, once they're violated, it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission. And so, again, once something's done and the lakes, rivers, and streams are being negatively impacted, and we need to lessen that impact and, look to the future and future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Good evening, Caitlin Falensky, East Bay Township resident. I'm a member of Protect Forest Lakes, and I am in full support of PFL's petition. I wanted to specifically address and emphasize temporary dwelling units. As we all know, they are not currently allowed, yet if you drive through a lakes area neighborhood anytime in the month of July, you will see numerous RVs and campers being occupied in driveways as extra housing, and they are typically hooked up via hose to the home's septic system. At least now when we see one, we know it is not legal, no matter how long it has been sitting there occupied. The challenge is East Bay does not have the capacity to enforce this issue now. Once you add it to the ordinance, you are codifying bad behavior. No one will be able to properly count how many days it has been occupied, and even with the reduced 30-day limit, that means every weekend from Memorial to Labor Day could have campers on every property. That will put undue stress on the lakes and home septic systems. It is unrealistic to think this rule will be compliantly followed in environmentally sensitive areas. This draft rewrite is increasing the minimum lot size in environmentally sensitive areas. But by allowing temporary dwellings, you are negating that positive acreage change. If you do choose to include them in other zoning districts and/or allow them in certain size lots of multiple acres, please specify number of units and capacity for each. But please do not allow temporary dwelling units in the environmentally sensitive areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Hi, my name is David Endicott My wife and I live at 702 East Arbutus Lake Road in Traverse City. It's our primary residence. I want to talk about the zoning ordinance as well. And marinas have no place in the lake area, full stop. To be clear, EBT should use Eagle's definition of a marina, which would include the lake area in addition to East Bay in the definition. Just to refresh everyone, the Eagle definition says a marina is a facility that meets the following criteria. It's owned or operated by a person, business, corporation. It extends into, over an inland lake or stream. It offers services to the public or marina members for docking, loading, and servicing recreational watercraft. Eagle also requires a construction permit for all projects that meet the definition of a marina. After all the hard work that East Bay Township and its citizens have put into revising the zoning ordinance, it would be a shame to allow any type of marina to exist which would have a strong potential to damage the wonderful lakes and streams that make up the lake area of East Bay Township. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
You can tell the older people and the younger people. The younger people carry their computer, us older people still carry paper. Having said that, the township board has went through a lot of this zoning ordinance, and I think, thank you guys for all the hard work you put in.
You need to,
I need Glen Lyle, 4257 Holiday Road, okay? Well, I'll tell you, there's no, anyhow, the only problem that I had, I got most of the questions answered before. The one issue I still have is temporary dwelling units. There's several things I don't know the answer to. I know that when we went through short-term rentals, we thought we were doing something good, and it ended up coming back and biting us. I think we're going to have the same problem. I would hope that if we got to get the zoning ordinance passed, we can pull this out of here and look at it, find other areas that went through it, because just like the people said, one size doesn't fit all. And I can see a lot of potential problems with it, the way it's set up. So that's all I'm going to ask for is maybe, and I don't know. I mean, I'm not on the planning commission. I didn't write the zoning ordinance, but there should be some way can hit the brakes on that part of it and still go forward with the rest of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn.
Paul Behringer, East Bay Township, Cross Country Trail. Again, I want to applaud the Planning Commission for the hard work you've been doing, but I do have some concerns. I first and foremost have been really concerned about the words that are being written, the formatting that's been done by our vendor, that these are words that will probably never be read by most residents. Most residents move in and they think they can do whatever they want with a piece of property. Once they get past all the permits for their home, they got their septic tank permitted, they got their drainage permitted, then it's wholesale, do whatever you want. I cringe when I hear chainsaws on the lakes. I feel as if people just don't have an education of the rules. I don't want to be that individual to turn in someone. I don't want to have that responsibility. I really challenge the Planning Commission, and Bill's been to my home. Bill helped me out. I had to remove a tree. It was dead. It was hanging over my dock. But I'd love to invite Bill to go for a boat ride on Chandler Lake, because I really question, when was the last time someone from East Bay Township actually went around the waterfront and actually looked at the problem? There are there's 70 pieces of property roughly on Chandler Lake. 7 of them currently have turf grass within 50 feet of the water. I don't know how that happens. You're not allowed to have more than 20% currently. We're going to 0. Are these people going to continue to cut their lawns? Are the clippings going to continue going to the lake? Is the fertilizer and the pesticides going to go into the lake? Is there any effort to restore the shorelines? Everything we're writing in these documents is about what you can't do. It is especially about me as a taxpayer paying exorbitant taxes to live in a lake. I did move here from Florida. I have family from Michigan. My wife's from Michigan. We love the area. But my taxes are 5 times what they were in Florida. And there's a state income tax. I'm trying to understand why I'm limited to what I can do with a piece of property, yet my neighbor could camp. They can do whatever the heck they want to do. You know, while I'm paying the bill for the roads, the schools, the township salaries, all of that. I'd gladly do that. But I really have a problem when I'm being told what I can't do and people are being told what they can do. I don't feel as if temporary housing should be allowed. If it's a farmer and a farmer wants to bring in seasonal workers for the harvest, which is part of our documents, and they want to house some workers on their farm, so be it. God love them. We all need food, right? But if I have someone camping next to me, bringing in their RV, or bringing in a party like the other resident just stated, I have a problem with that. My feelings are, if you do decide, which I'm not in agreement with allowing temporary housing and allowing camping on properties, but I think you do it based on a permit. I think you give 1 permit for a homeowner per year. I have a son. I have fond memories of camping with my son in my backyard. It was some of the fondest memories of my life, to put up a pup tent, sleeping bag, read a bedtime story or whatever in the backyard. I don't want that to go away for a homeowner. But I also would understand if I had to go to the township and say, hey, I need to have a permit. I want to camp out with my boy. Or I have family coming into town. I'm going to put up 1 tent on my property so someone can stay over. Or there's going to be an RV at my house. And that, yes, my septic system can handle it. And that, yes, I would get all the rules relative to that permit. But to just haphazardly say that someone can stay on a piece of property for 7 days, and I have to be the one to monitor that, and then like another resident said, they could be there every weekend for the summer, that's just not fair. Not fair at all. I'm completely against ADUs in the Lakes District. I think you can do a simple Zillow search for what properties are for sale. You can do a simple Airbnb search. And if you put in an Airbnb search, you'll find homes in our community on the lakes that say they will house 14 people overnight at their Airbnb, and they're a 4, 2.5. So how are 14 people using 4 bedrooms and 2.5 baths, and that's not taxing on the septic system that may or may not have been inspected? So I just feel like we're going down this very slippery slope. We're saying we're protecting the lakes, but we're not. And 90% of the damage has already been done, and I don't think we're doing anything to undo the damage, nor do I feel like we're inspecting what's already occurred. So again, I would be more than happy to take any member of East Bay Township or any member of this commission on any one of our inland lakes for a little boat ride. In fact, I would love it if the sheriff did like a ride-along, and maybe had a sheriff boat that would take you around. We have the resources. I think we can be a lot more creative. But I don't think that we are educating our residents well, and I think we talk out of both sides of our mouths when we talk about what we can and cannot do here. And I'm particularly concerned.
And we're at the end of our time limit, but
That's fine.
just want to get you to wrap up.
Yeah, I'm happy to wrap up. I just feel that we can absolutely be more creative. We can be treated more like a community. I think based on how many people with the Save Forest Lakes has signed a petition, you probably have a good group of volunteers in that group that would be more than happy to help educate our community and stop the madness. Thank you.
Thank you, Walt. I mean, I'm okay. We can wrap it up. Are we good? Going once, going twice? Okay, thank you, everyone, for the comments. We'll keep the agenda rolling here. And we'll move on to, let me get back to it. Our correspondence, and Claire, we've got a myriad of things on our desk, including what we've already received, or on top of what we've already received.
So you've got all the correspondence that's in your packet. Everything on your desk is what came in prior to 6 PM this evening. So on the left side of your desk is related to Elmbrook, and that includes the proposed road names and correspondence from the Watershed Center. And on the right-hand side of your desk, you've got additional correspondence, 7 items that have come in since the 6 items that were included in your packet, all related to the zoning ordinance rewrite.
Got it. Perfect, thank you. Any questions to Claire? Okay. Moving right along to item number 8, which is business before the Planning Commission. First up is site plan review 16-24 of Elmbrook's Phase 1, and this is a public hearing and deliberation and possible action. We'll also be looking at potential extension of the existing conditional land use, conditional rezoning that's associated with it as well. So that being said, Claire, maybe kick us off, please.
So this proposal is for 201 rental units. They're calling this Elmbrook Phase 1. It's located in a wooded area south of the Elmbrook Golf Course Entrance Drive. The development would consist of a mix of triplex and quadplex buildings, and this is a use that's permitted by right in this district. As you may recall, this property was conditionally rezoned and went into effect in November of 2022. So the rezoning on the property, which is all of the golf course, is a mix of moderate density residential and then about 30 acres of high density residential right up near Hammond Road, kind of even with the current Bayview. The conditions that were offered by the applicant and accepted by the township include a limit on the types of uses permitted, a maximum of 212 units for the entire site, like for all phases, which ends up being about 4 units per acre.
I'm sorry, 912.
Did I say 912?
212.
Oh, I'm sorry, 912, which is, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. 912, which is an average of 4 units per acre. And then some buffering requirements from the existing residential neighborhoods. So the conditional rezoning is set to expire November 1st of 2025. And if the substantial construction of Phase 1 has not began. The applicant is looking for a recommendation, so the Planning Commission cannot extend that conditional rezoning, but you can make a recommendation to the Township Board to extend that, and they're looking for an additional 2 years of an extension. So with the conditional rezoning, as I'm sure most of the Planning Commission is aware, all zoning standards still need to be met. So you've got the conditional rezoning, some of the conditions that were included, but all of the landscaping requirements, environmental protections, et cetera, all also need to be met through this proposal. So with the proposal, no wetlands will be disturbed, and the development is over 100 feet from any existing streams in terms of the area of disturbance. The application meets landscaping requirements, it meets the dark sky standards, the parking requirements, and access requirements. There was a traffic impact study that was performed by Fishback. It's been shared with the Road Commission and also reviewed by Wade Trim, traffic engineers. It showed that a traffic light is going to be needed once, and the threshold is 100 new homes. So up to 100 new homes can be added. Once this development hits 100 new homes, a traffic light will need to go in. So the applicant can speak in more detail on that, but they're looking at 2 phasing within this phase. Wanted to just mention, as I'm sure you noticed at the site visit tonight, there are a lot of mature trees. It's a heavily wooded site. We've had conversations with the applicant about preserving mature trees on the site as possible, particularly where they're located in the proposed yards and open space. As you know, 25% of the site needs to be dedicated to open space, and 30% of that needs to be dedicated to woody vegetation. So with their application, they are meeting all those requirements. Through the majority is new plantings. So, and the applicant can speak more to the tree preservation and their approach to that. Non-motorized connectivity is a high priority, so the township has given considerable effort. We've invested a ton into the Safe Routes to School and the 3-mile trail extension. So we've got that north-south corridor that's going to be in construction soon. The Safe Routes is going to be going up along Hammond, east of 3 Mile, as well as up along 3 Mile Road. So we're really going to be looking to work with this applicant and developer to make sure that we have safe, connected, non-motorized access from Bayview, from Elmbrook, over to the schools that are here at East Bay Corners. You'll see that there was a very non-tech map that I just drafted. I think it's on page 189 of your packet, but it just provides some preliminary ideas of those connections. So can we look at connections on the southern end of the golf course? Can we look at coming up along Hammond, and then can we go to Edgecombe, and can we work with the existing subdivisions to get some non-motorized easements in place to make sure that we have safe transportation corridor for kids going to school? So I am recommending 2 actions tonight. So one is related to the development proposal. It includes 6 conditions. And then the second action involves a recommendation to the board to extend the conditional rezoning based on the rationale that's been provided by the applicant, and that is on page 186 of your packet.
Thank you. Any questions of Claire? Okay. The applicant's here before we open up for a public hearing. If you want to come on up and introduce yourself.
Sure. Joe Lucrecchio of Elmbrook Bayview TC LLC, the owners and developers of the property. This is Doug Mansfield, Mansfield Land Use Consultants, and Claire provided a great overview of the project. I can answer questions on the unit styles and number of bedrooms and driveways and parking and things like that. It's going to be these units are going to be very similar to what we did in Bayview with the Parks of Bayview, which was the townhome-style units, 2 and 3 bedroom, 1,200 up to 1,500 square feet in terms of slab on grade, 2,300 square feet roughly in a base, if a basement is included. 82% of the units will have 2-car garages. So it's a product that we're very comfortable, confident. It was tested and has performed very well for us, and we feel like the community can use more of it, and that's why we've focused these units in that style. Couple of points of additional points. There'll be sidewalks on both sides of the road throughout the development. Our sidewalk network will contain connectivity to Bayview, the sister project to the north. One point of clarification in terms of the traffic study itself, Claire, it was 150 units was where the threshold was for the traffic light, not 100. And that's been reviewed by the Road Commission and Wade Trim's traffic engineers. I want to make a couple points about phasing. We intend on phasing this project because largely the sanitary sewer infrastructure that we installed as part of Bayview, our lift station, will not accommodate any more than 100 units as it exists. So we have to provide another lift station, perhaps do some upgrades to the force main. That's all stuff that we have to investigate with the township, Wade Trim, DPW, and determine what needs to be done. But there will need to be additional infrastructure. So this will be phased, and the roads, sewer, water will be installed accordingly and will be, so they can be tested and accepted by the township by phase. With respect to timing, we expect that this will be a 2-year roughly completion for phase 1. we hope to commence sometime in 2025, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as part of the other item before you about the extension on the conditional rezoning. But, and again, Phase 2 will not commence until all that additional sanitary sewer has been designed and constructed. Then a couple other, as far as the road commission, you're probably aware that Town Line Road from Hammond up to Airport Road will be improved in the spring of 2025. All the details of that I don't know, but I would imagine it's going to be a pretty complete overhaul of Town Line Road there. As far as southbound Town Line goes, we agreed to a cost sharing for improvements to southbound Town Line from Hammond to the Golf Course Service Drive as part of our conditional rezoning a couple of years back, and so we are going to assume 65% of that cost, and cost sharing will be between us, the Road Commission, East Bay and Garfield Townships, and our responsibility is going to be 65%. So once the Road Commission starts with that, we will, assume that portion. As Claire said, this project is consistent with the master land use plan. We meet or exceed all district standards for the MDR, meet or exceed all requirements for landscaping, lighting, parking, and open space, and it's been reviewed and approved by Metro Fire. And with respect to Elmbrook, I do want to state that, this design will not interfere with the existing golf course layout. And our projected timelines for this clearly demonstrate that the golf course, as it exists, will not be impacted by development for the foreseeable future. So, in other words, Elmbrook, as you know it, will be Elmbrook for quite some time. And with respect to the extension, the November 25 was when we had to have substantial commencement of our first phase of residential with respect to the golf course project. This was apart from the Bayview development. And really, the rationale, the reason that we're asking for the extension is it's a very difficult market. It's a difficult lending market. These projects are difficult enough to make work and be successful with good lending criteria. Right now, it's crazy with interest rates and lender criteria, and so we don't know that we will start this next year. We hope to. We're not certain. We believe the market will support it, and that's why we have this product proposed, but it's a question of making sense of the overall project. So we would ask that you grant that extension for the 2 years. Tree preservation, Bayview was a farm field, and there were a few mature trees, and most of those few mature trees are still there. In a couple of instances, including our main stormwater basin, which was a significantly sized basin, it was a prime maple tree, just big, beautiful maple tree, was in the way of the basin. In other words, the basin was going to blow right through it. And I made the call in the field, we're not doing it. That tree is staying. We're dancing around it, and we redesigned our whole basin. It was expensive. It was problematic. It was timely. It assumed, ate up a lot of time right in the middle of the project. And so my point in that is, we don't want to go clear cut. We want to assume good responsibility with respect to saving what we can. It's going to be, our development's going to be driven by what our infrastructure, roads, sewer, water, how they have to go in and how they can function. But where we can preserve, avoid interference with trees, we will do so. And that's really it. I mean, Doug and I will happily answer any questions you have.
Any questions for the applicant?
I have a question, but I don't know who it's for. When Costco went in, the traffic study for Costco said we needed a light at Town Line. And it said that I thought Costco had a financial obligation on that light.
I had not heard that. I know that as a part of the Bayview, we did, you provided, or actually, no, it wasn't the Bayview, it was Mitten Apartments. I think Mansfield kind of pulled from the Costco study. So we can certainly look into where that was, maybe.
And I could speak to that real quick before Doug does. Just, I can tell you that in my discussions with the road commission last year, that same question was asked to the director, Brad at the time, I don't remember his last name, that we understood that Costco was responsible for a traffic light as part of their approval. He said, no, that's not the case, and basically it fell flat. So I don't know, Doug probably knows a lot more about it.
We're crossing jurisdictional boundaries. Costco is in the planning effort of the city, and the city does their own roads and streets and their own profiling and modeling of the streets. They put it in their granting order for Costco that the next outlot that sells is supposed to pay the cost of a good share of the cost at Town Line and Hammond. That didn't transfer to Road Commission. The Road Commission came in and basically said, these are our roads, we'll decide when the warrants provide that traffic calming element is necessary. And so it is in the city, Traverse City research and their proposal when they approved Costco and the outlots there. How that intertwines with the different jurisdictions seems to be lost. So, but it is there in the traffic study, and we have a copy of it, yeah. So.
Well, thank you. We're going to open up a public hearing. We might come back to both of you. With that being said, we'll open the public hearing at 7:27. And anybody that has questions or comments about this project can come up to the lectern. Same deal as before, 3 minutes to speak. Okay. Going once, oh, here we go, I knew it. I knew I could motivate. No way.
Okay, I'm new here.
That's okay. Who are you and where are you from?
I'm Sarah Lake, and I'm actually representing Auto Owners Insurance Company. We're right off of Hammond. So you talk about the light that hopefully will be put in, whether it's Costco or otherwise by y'all. What all did this traffic study entail, and did it take into consideration the neighborhood that is behind auto owners that does not connect through Cherry Ridge, as well as the associates that could be potentially getting caught there? I can tell you, I've witnessed accidents happen there. There are often backups. I'm sure it was exacerbated when the construction was going on. It has gotten slightly better, but even leaving work today, it was pretty backed up even to take a right out, let alone to take a left out. So just curious, what the impact would be to the greater surrounding community.
Thank you for that. And just as a point of clarity, we'll address the applicant for you on your behalf.
Thank you.
So we'll come back, but thank you for your comments.
Okay.
Any others? I thought I saw a couple others.
I'm Marcy Hurst at 101 Emerson Road, joining property in Garfield Township. And my concern, just because I have a very different topography than the east side of the golf course. I'm high up on a ridge, and I understood that there was a Mitchell Creek overlay, and I saw in the packet that the water study isn't complete yet. But there are some sensitive wetlands at the bottom of that big ridge, and there's some wetlands that we saw up on the corner of the site that are proposed to be used as a catch basin. I don't know that that makes sense to me, that water runoff or stormwater should go into a natural wetland. So if you could speak to that. And I didn't see, and I know my portion isn't abutting this phase yet, but all of this, I feel, is part of that Mitchell Creek watershed that's not really shown on the property in this version. It was the initial round. So that's my concern, is that you guys look carefully at that.
Thank you.
I wasn't going to do this. Jeff Hoke, 827 Vienna Way in Verndale, which is the property that abuts auto owners to the south. There was a brief mention of the safe school walkway. To get through to the schools, you're either going to have to go across auto owners' property or into the subdivision. How would that work, given the layout of homes and no sidewalks and all of that that exist today? I'm very curious.
And again, that may be something that we could revisit with staff in the future. We probably won't get a straight answer out of that because it's all kind of very hypothetical at this time. And I understand your concern in terms of having people come across your backyard, if you will.
Well, there's two concerns. One, we're not safe as residents walking through Verndale at some points. Never mind. But two, kids going to school early in the morning, coming home late at night, increased traffic, foot traffic through the neighborhood is an issue.
Yeah, and that is...
And we were there first.
Sure, and that is not a part of what's on the table this evening.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's complete hypothetical. It'll be something that we'll have to talk about, frankly, as a community in the future, as far as different options that may be out there. But again, that is a little ways down the line, timing-wise.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump the gun here, but I served on a planning commission in my hometown, and I appreciate the work that you're all doing. But based on what I just heard from the developer, isn't the whole thing kind of hypothetical?
At this moment in time, again, we don't get into a whole lot of back and forth with a lot of these.
Okay.
However,
I'll leave the question on the table.
I want to...
People in the audience to hear, if we don't know if we're starting in '25, but we've got to be done before '27, and we don't know about the market and the interest rates, the whole thing's hypothetical. And you're making, I assume, decisions based on the hypothetical.
Yeah, we can speak to the development and how much it will actually encompass, and we'll do that for you, no problem.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
Trevor Williams, I'm at 849 Vienna Way in Verndale as well. Just want to say thanks, Joe, for keeping Elmbrook. Very much appreciate that. I'm on the fourth hole, so I was really sad when that started a few years ago. But the traffic study was something I was wondering about. I don't know if the townships looked at the eastbound staying as 2 lanes instead of going down to 1. That is a problem for us. And I have a kid turning 16, so yeah. So I don't know if the traffic study that they did, if it addresses how that will positively impact having a light at Town Line, might lessen that jam. But I also think y'all should consider 2 lanes eastbound. So along the school and Olson's down to the new turnaround or roundabout at 4 Mile. I don't know. Seems like it would make sense. That's it.
Thank you for that.
Paul Behringer, East Bay Township. Just a quick question. I was curious if the traffic study at all considered the speed limit on Hammond and whether a reduced speed limit on Hammond, taking it from 55 to say 50 or 45, would make that area safer with or without a traffic light. especially concerning young drivers, it made me thought of my own experiences living in Florida near a university and a lot of high schools that had a lot of young drivers. The speed limits were 55 on those roads, and there was consistent accidents. There were pedestrians killed on sidewalks because people would cut each other off, they'd be racing on the street. So I think anything we can do to reduce the speed limit as these roadways become more and more intense, we start looking at the moderate density, high density areas. Are we really considering the road infrastructure, how much can that handle, and at what speeds? And then how adjacent are the sidewalks and trails and all the things that we're trying to interconnect our city. So I'd just be curious if that's being considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Going once, going twice. Okay, we'll close the public hearing at 7:33 and bring it back to the planning commission. We got a few things that maybe we could have the applicant come back up and address, just as far as questions that have come out of that. And maybe, I'll kick it off. I've got a laundry list unless you want to shoot from the hip.
No, go ahead.
Okay. First up, maybe to just kind of talk through is tree preservation and the plan, kind of outlining that.
The woodlots are all fantastic. We're all up here because we love trees. There are very diverse woodlots in East Bay Township. There are singularly focused woodlots also. And when we look at the woodlot that's left from Elmbrook through time, it is not a healthy forest. It may have sizable trees. There's no specimen trees, what we entitle in there. You've got trees of anywhere from 8 to 16 inches. They're generally very tall, very straight, and have almost no foliage until they get to the top canopy on them. There's no understory here. There's no, the trees that are there do not bear a lot of fruit for any wildlife. The biggest thing it does is for insects, because it's so moist in there. And so I'm not saying that it's not a valuable woodlot. It's full of a lot of little round pieces of gold that are white. And I've got pictures of theirs all over there, little golf eggs. But if, I will say, this forest is not a healthy forest. It's very spindly. Trees are getting almost no light at that level to grow. Those are the same trees we've seen probably in 10 years, and they haven't grown. It's not to say that, like I said, the biggest thing that we're protecting there is the insect population. That being said, we are preserving the trees as much as we can on the slopes and the buffer zones, and if we do find ones that lay out accordingly, then we will endeavor to save them. We always have. Trees have a value to their marketplace also, and they enjoy those. And one significant tree can make a city block seem more livable. But there's a lot of, I'm going to just say, there's a lot of development criteria that the township has, the DPW has, the fire department has when it comes to these type of developments. We are doing a project here that is as narrow a corridor as you will find in any development. This is not mass level parking lots here. This is in scale with residential neighborhoods, and I think you can look at the same preservation that was done with any of the subdivisions taking place in the same pattern. We're not outside the pattern of a residential neighborhood. But I can't say that this area is not going to be impacted. Part of the agreement in the conditional rezonings was to back off from all these other sidelines hundreds of feet. Okay, so we've kind of worked ourselves into a single corridor. Then there was also goals and market-driven issues and witnesses to preserving the golf course at least as long as we can. So we're trying to work with all those parameters. But we are replanting a substantial number of trees. I think it's almost 250 trees. We've got foundation plantings on each of those. And I will say, given sunlight, those trees will do a lot better than this forest is right now. So that's where we're at on the trees.
Thank you for that. Next one on my list is, can you?
Ask a question real quick?
Sure. Go ahead.
So within the conditions, there is, the question, can the developer work with the construction team to save the mature trees as possible located within the lawn of the proposed townhome?
So that's what we did
Yeah.
previously, and that's what
Okay.
we endeavored to do with this market. Yep.
Okay. And I see 209 trees, but is that potentially more?
Well, we've got some more buffer zones, and then between those, the 209 was just on the streetscape alone, so.
Okay, streetscape.
Any other tree-related questions? Okay, next up, maybe just get a little in the weeds for us on the traffic study portion of it, to define how wide the distance they're looking at, how often they regulated it and monitored it.
East Bay, you've grown as a core from 3 Mile out. So there's a model that one private traffic study company is making a bunch of money off of, because we revisit this thing probably over the last 15 years. Okay, as it's grown, as it's changed the markets, population's stayed about the same. If there's been anything, there's been a bigger influx from the outside. The traffic numbers on the existing roads passing through your township have grown substantially. That being said, our traffic study right now goes out to 4 Mile, and then all the way to the next light, which would be the Bay to the north, 3 Mile, all the way to South Airport, so the next light. And it goes out about 1 mile into Garfield, which hits the Garfield Hammond Road light there. And it looks at all those intersections. It takes into account all the existing home sites and models them, and it takes into anything that's on the works as far as proposals. So they go around and they ask us, what else is coming? And recently, we've been able to give them a lot. And a lot is happening here. That being said, our roads are governed, so when we look at failures, and when you get down to the C and D levels of people waiting or having to go through 1 or 2 lights, that's when the frustration takes place and bad decisions are made. And that's what we're seeing a little bit right now with some of these left-hand turns. The other thing is, when we talk about widening roads, making those turning movements where there isn't a light or isn't a break in the traffic, and you're crossing not only just one lane, let's say to turn left, the left-hand turns is what we're looking at primarily, turning over one lane and making it, but when we go to 2 and that path is increased or doubled before that turning movement is done and you're out of the way of the oncoming traffic, that's where we're going to have to look at. It's not always great just to add more lanes, okay? So, and the road commissions and MDOT give money to people who can move traffic. That's what they're about, is moving traffic. So the traffic model is extremely current. I will say it vets well with the road commission's model, and the warrants in this case said, hey, another 150 houses, and we're going to have to install something at that intersection, and we're going to have to figure out as a community how to get it done. So what was good was the model done for the city was actually another traffic engineering company, and since the recession, it should be known, we've lost all our traffic engineers in the area. You have to pretty much go down to Grand Rapids or Detroit to find a company that can sustain a traffic engineer, because there's specific education and background and experience to read these models. So it doesn't come lightly when somebody says we need a traffic study anymore. It used to be fairly easy to reach out, and you had the local experience and knowledge too. So now, I suppose one could say it's more objective, how traffic's being looked at, not as personal or knowing, what time this school gets out or this factory gets out. They're just looking at straight counts. And so they want to know how far it looked at it. Did it look at all the existing things? Yes. Did it look at all the proposed, not only this development, but any other proposals in the works at the township and the adjoining townships?
Any other traffic questions? If not, one of the last ones I've got is tied to, I'm sorry, Mindy.
I thought Joe said that the traffic study wasn't done in 2024, but it looks like it was done in April of 2023.
August of 2023 and updated in June of 2023.
Right.
Am I looking at something incorrectly here? Because it looks like April of 2023 to me. You want my
I can tell you, I'm looking at August 4th, 2023.
I see 4/11/2023 on this.
Yeah, and you got a June 24. So I'm getting down to it. What page is that, Paul?
Page 58.
The reason I asked is because if it was the August, you wouldn't have the school buses, but if you have April, you have the school buses. So I just wanted, and that was the question that was asked, so.
June 4th, you still have school buses.
But,
Honestly, that model doesn't change. That was in there before, so they just retain that.
right, and I'm saying
Yeah.
that that's good.
Yes.
Not negative, I'm
Yeah.
just saying it's good, because we do have the April where the school buses were here, so that was
Well, in
the,
fact, I know too, one of the things is they looked at, and this is when you mentioned buses, they actually took in our project for the Beta buses too, which is 105 buses on Hammond now, and how those training movements work, because it's kind of like when you have the environmental, and you kind of got to testify what you know. So they said to us, what do you know is out there? And we said, well, this is going to come online too. So the buses was a big thing, so,
well,
yeah.
there was lots of questions at the site plan about the
Okay.
buses. And so I just wanted to point out to the people in the audience that we do have two. You know, one is the April when the buses were fully running, and then the update in June of, so, thank you for that.
Good. It's a lot of theory. But I will say over the last 10 or 15 years, we've got a pretty good model of East Bay and the corners going forward, your safe routes, anything you want to study on that, so.
Next up is any other questions tied to the wetland concern or Mitchell Creek? Can you kind of speak to the
I wanna
on-site water management?
I want to clarify that because anyone involved in planning will know we have a lot of great tools out there, but they're just that, they're planning tools. And the basis of all these planning tools was USGS maps that were done, frankly, in the 40s and 50s, okay? And they were done extremely accurately by crews of men paid for by the federal government over, I think it was 30 years. The next was the 50s and 60s soil studies, which, if you're in our field, is an incredible tool that we simply don't know how it was done, because it is so accurate. It's amazing. These people turned our land across the nation into Swiss cheese, boring down just a certain number of feet and marking these soil types. And they knew each soil type and what it would do, what it could be used for. Was it good for farming? Was it good for building on? Was it erodible? It's an incredible study that is just overlooked. When the GIS came along, we digitized all those contours and all those soil types, and we put labels on them. And frankly, one of the issues is they go back before almost any portion of this area was ever dreamed of being developed, okay? So what happens is, because no one goes on private property anymore, and it's easier to just take work that's done, but this is what we call the National Wetlands Inventory, okay? And this is, Elmbrook is right over here on this side of the page, and this is good tools to get into. Actually, that little wetlands by Town Line Road is that little sliver of orange right there, and our pond is over here. And this tributary from that pond goes through it and gets into another pond that we dealt with in the Slatter Farm, Bayview, and how it crosses the road all the way to Mitchell Creek. That is almost totally correct because it was visible in the new satellite photos and such, so it gets incorporated. But these little blue lines, okay, that are shown on here, tributaries of Black and Mitchell Creek, frankly, were probably gone decades ago. And we went out with our geographic information system and technology and actually looked at those corridors, okay, of where those pictures were, of where this maps are. Because those maps, what happened is, then the planners took that, what looks like a creek on here, and extended the buffer zones from that. And that shows in all your planning and zoning documents then. Well, I've been working with this piece of property for 30 years, and I know the wetlands pretty well. And for instance, this is a photo of the one tributary. This would be photo A. So this is the tributary that extends off the town line wetlands that you saw in the field today. And when we go out on site, this is what's there, okay? So that tributary just simply doesn't exist in modern day. And because Elmbrook is 40 years old, 30, 50 years, 55 years old. So I guess we're only going back to 75, but, you know, and this information frankly dates way back into the 30s and 40s, the basis of it. So that's why you have this as a guide, but when you get on the site, it just simply doesn't look like this anymore. And I think you'll find that in any little maps. If they were dealing, you'll see contours where there's parking lots now, and it just hasn't been updated. Similarly, because we took it serious, and everything your staff gives us, we take serious. This is a photo of the other tributary area shown on the map. When you go out there, it's simply the edge of a golf hole. There's nothing there, and there's no, the other thing is that when you build golf courses, and you may have seen tonight, there's a lot of underground drainage that goes into a golf course to keep the fairways and the greens just right moisture content. And in that wetland that goes out to town line, there's, I think, 2 little sock drains that are coming out and going into that, and they have for 55 years, probably. Actually, they probably were about 2 years after they found the drainage problems. But, those connections, those threads you see south of the pond and south of that town line road just simply aren't there. So I want to make that clear when we talk about, and that happens. I would never say get rid of this tool. It's a fantastic tool that we have for planning. But yeah, that's why it's just a guide, and it says right on it, it's a guide, you know, so.
I will say that the Watershed Center did
Yeah.
send correspondence yesterday from their review that they were pleased to see that it wasn't encroaching on any tributary, so.
But I
I
think,
had originally looked at the map.
Yeah.
It was not accurate,
Yeah.
so.
so that's on that issue. We are not touching the wetlands. We're not proposing to manipulate them, mitigate them at all. The DNR and DEQ, Eagle, the state of Michigan allows you to hold a 25, or East Bay allows you, Eagle concurs, that if you can overflow into a wetland, that's what we're doing, we would only have to retain a 25-year storm event. So that's what we're doing. And then outletting into the wetlands. Because the last thing you want to do is stop all the water from going to wetlands. So utilize them. They are, those soil types are actually good for filtering water and doing what nature wants to do. So it's a good thing, so.
Thank you for that. Any other questions of the applicant?
When we were on site, there was a lot of concern about bus traffic and safe routes to school. And so Claire, if you could just speak a little bit to that. There were great concerns that the students are walking up Town Line, and that's obviously a main road, and then the bus is pulling in on Hammond and almost like crossing Town Line. The kids are running amok, and it's pretty dangerous. And I do see that you have a proposed.
Yeah, so I think that we would need to interface with TCAPS to get more information about their bus routes. The proposed routes is strictly just for non-motorized transportation. So, the township has been working and has had ongoing conversations with Beta and looking at transit service to this as well as other planned residential development along the corridor. But in terms of TCAP's bus plans and routes, I do think that a follow-up conversation with TCAP's is warranted. We have received correspondence from the public related to that, so we're aware, and I think better understanding their plans and sharing this proposed development makes a lot of sense.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted the public to hear that, as that was a great conversation we had. So thank you for that follow-up.
Great, Minnie.
So when I drove out of there tonight, that 10-foot wide sidewalk is right there where I've seen the bus before, and I'm wondering if we can facilitate a conversation with TCAPS and specifically the bus drivers of that route. And I don't know if you own that sidewalk now, or if it got moved to the road commission.
Townships and road commission.
It's the road commissions then. So I would love to see something painted on the sidewalk that says, and a line, right? It says, and that everybody's behind that line until the bus driver says, come on, so that everybody is in that location. And I don't know if it'll work, but it was just the thought that I had, knowing that that's what the bus driver does with our kids when they have to cross the road. They're not allowed to move until the bus driver acknowledges them to come to the bus. So it was just a thought. I know there's lots of conversations there, and I don't know if everybody likes my idea or not, but that's just an idea I had, so.
I feel like a simple conversation with TCAPS about moving it to the entrance farther south for that whole development could be had, and it'd be much safer, especially if when this is built, that bus is gonna have to go farther south down there to reach that. So, I feel like it's a simple issue to talk with TCAPS on.
Yeah, we can definitely follow up.
Thank you.
Any other comments or concerns on this, or questions we need to flush out? And Claire, just to be clear, we've got two potential actions before us, right? One is tied directly to the site plan, which starts and ends with us. And the secondary is the actual extension of the conditional rezoning.
Yeah, that is correct. And I would say, Joe did provide that clarification, so thank you, that the traffic light trigger is at 150 units as opposed to 100, but I still think we can kind of look at the Phase 1A, which is including 100 units, would not require a traffic light, while Phase 1B would trigger a traffic requirement, unless you have any concerns about that.
We're not going to break that next phase,
Okay,
so we're fine.
okay. So I think as drafted, those conditions can remain.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve SPR 16-24 Elmbrook Phase 1, subject to the staff findings of fact as amended, and the following suggested conditions, and those are stated 1 through 6 in our packet.
I support.
Thank you. We have a motion by Rhonda, supported by Steve, for the proposed approval. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. For the site plan approval tied to SPR 16-24. And next up is a recommendation.
I move to recommend to the Township Board that zoning amendment 2-21, conditional rezoning of the Elmbrook property, parcels 03-230-00400 and
excuse me, 03-230-006-00 and 03-230-009-00 will be extended 2 years until November 1st, 2027, based on the correspondence submitted by the applicant on 7/31/24.
Is there support?
Support.
Thank you. We have a motion by Rhonda, supported by Renee, for a recommendation to approve this to the Township Board at their next scheduled meeting. All those in favor signify by saying, oh. We can have a debate about the conditions or the recommendation.
I'd just like to point out that this particular request is something that is really hypothetical. First off, we're 14 months away, and there's plenty of time that at the end or sometime in 2025, they can always come back to us, and we will also see what developments are being made on the property itself. The second item is that I have a concern that when we do things like this, we're setting a precedent that we may not want to live with in the future. And I believe that since there is time, there is time, there is also debate right now. If you listen to any of the talking heads of economics, we're expecting that somewhere in the middle of 2025, things are going to be much more, let's say, I don't want to say rosy. I just want to say that the object right now, or these projections right now, is that interest rates are going to be coming down anywhere from 100 to 200 basis points, or 250 basis points, somewhere in 2025. So conditions are going to lighten up. I'm not going to get into discussion about what the Fed is, because I'm nothing more than guessing myself. But my main concern is, one, we have time on this. Two, we can see what progress is being made, and that could be any type that's basically a subjective opinion as to how much is being done on that. And third, I don't like having an ordinance and then we go around the ordinance. So I would propose that we don't pass this. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, we can continue the discussion. Mindy?
On the map on, I don't know what page this is, 203. It does not include, or I do not see, how about that, 03-230-009-00. Is that the currently being developed parcel?
I'm sorry?
So you're talking about the...
The 1 acre piece?
Yeah, there were 3 parcels that were conditionally rezoned, and that does not include that 1 acre parcel. That's part.
On this map, I don't see this last parcel identified.
Are you referring to the 1 acre parcel?
I don't know. All it does is give me a tax ID number. And so I'm looking at a map and I don't see it on here, so I'm wondering where it is.
So the corner of Hammond...
Hey, Joe, could you come to the lectern, please?
So the corner of Town Line and the Golf Course Entrance Drive is the 1 acre parcel that was not originally part of the conditional rezoning. So that is zoned LDR. It does not permit attached product in the LDR. We originally, on our site plan, the reason that your packet shows a total of 203 units and it's now down to 201 is because there were a couple corners of quadplex buildings that overlapped onto that site. Those were removed, turned into triplex buildings. The only thing on that corner in that 1 acre, which was not part of our original conditional rezoning, is stormwater. So I think that's what you're referring to as part of
But I think, so Mindy is.
I can't see what she's looking at, so I'm sorry.
She's referencing the 3 parcels that were part of the conditional rezoning,
Mhm.
and those were, I pulled those from when the conditional rezoning was approved, so I guess I can't speak to the,
Well, the conditional rezoning was for a total of, at the time, 228 acres, if I'm not mistaken? Yeah, 228. So I don't know what those 3 parcels are, but the conditional rezoning encompassed the golf course, that additional 11-acre parcel, and I think it totaled 228. Bayview was another 28, which was separate. It was not part of the conditional rezoning. So I'm not sure.
They were looking for 009.
Looking for 00900. I
The
don't,
map is inconsistent or shows a couple parcels, but not.
Not the third.
yeah, Doug, can you see
I guess one thing that I'll just point out from a master plan perspective is when we conditionally rezoned these parcels, there was a lot of discussion about the master plan and the future land use map, and as you'll recall, when we went through the master plan rewrite, the township took a look at these parcels and has adjusted the future land use map to be consistent with this zoning, and so this really, if this came before the township probably today, it wouldn't be conditionally rezoned. I think as a part of this zoning ordinance rewrite, it would just be zoned as moderate density and high density in front, consistent with our future land use map and the land use pattern, so that's just one.
Yeah, and our conditional rezoning contained all kinds of limitations around our property boundaries. And, Verndale, Cherry Ridge, Farm Lane, all those residents had a lot to do with, a lot of interaction, a lot of meeting with our planning consultants and how we could provide some buffers that made them feel more comfortable. I guess I'm not sure, Mindy, what the question or.
It's just not shown.
It's
Huh?
not on there.
Oh, so that's referenced, but it's not shown?
Right.
It's referenced in these are the tax parcels, but there's just not, the number isn't tagged on here, and she's just asking.
Where is it?
Which one.
Okay, now I understand your question, okay.
So I think I'll have to
So-
follow up because there's just not information to.
Yeah. So, and with respect to the conditional rezoning request to extend, I understand what Mr. Gonzalez is saying about it's a hypothetical, but it's kind of like, the analogy I would make is, would somebody be chomping at the bit to buy a house right now because of the conditions? And, look, we are happy to expedite, to do what we have to do, or stick with that November of '25. We are asking for your consideration. If you want us to substantially commence a project, then we will substantially commence it, because we're not going to let our conditional rezoning slip. But, we've taken strides in our development to maintain Elmbrook, to maintain this open space right now, to, hear the neighbors out about, to respond to Dennis's 7 or 12 emails I got from him over the year about, but I appreciate him, and seriously, I do, and we listened. But if it's, get it done, we'll go get it done. And I just, I don't personally see the harm in the extension, but, that's up to you guys to grant, to recommend to the board in that regard.
Well, just let me add, so it takes about a year to put together a project of this magnitude, and it takes about, just so everybody knows, 6 to 8 months to get all the permits from the state. That's something you probably don't know, but a sewer permit in this state takes typically 6 to 8 months to get, okay? So when we talk about asking a year out, And, you know, it's not, we can't revisit this in October of 2025, and you wouldn't want to, because, but when we talk, if you're talking about waiting until, until this happens.
No, you're missing the point, and we're starting a debate. My point simply is that you're looking for an extension. We have an ordinance. I'm saying that I realize there are timing, but I don't think you're going to wait until that time to start going through that process. The question about how much progress is made is going to be determined by what you do and what we see you do. And I don't think either side is going to be unreasonable. All I'm also saying is that since we are looking at setting precedent, I have been here when we have done things and it has come back to haunt us. And I'm saying since number one, that issue is in the ordinance as it is, but you also have the ability to come to us between now and then and say, we've made this progress, let's look at it. But at this point, I'm saying I don't want to go outside the ordinance. I want to stay with what the ordinance is and certainly take a look at the progress that's made, especially since we have 14 months.
Can I speak to that?
Sure.
So progress, the way that the language was written is substantial commencement or substantial construction. That
Substantial progress.
No, that's not what's written. It's written as substantial commencement of the project or substantial construction, correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
So it needs
so that means we're not just going to go stick a shovel in the ground because we can't. We need a land use permit, we need to have our engineering done, so that is a full-on commitment to a project. That's a full-on go. And so that's Doug having, 100% engineering docs, all our state permits, everything else, and we're starting a project. Again, we will do that. We can't just wait, we can't, the substantial progress, what does that mean if we're not, it's construction or commencement, I can't remember, Claire.
Basically, like a vested, like creating a vested right.
But what does the condition say? Is it commencement or construction? I can't remember. It's one of the two. But it was basically, and I can remember this specifically, it was, you got to be going on the project, sticking shovels in the ground, which means engineering. And so, again, we will do that. I don't, I don't personally see, again, the harm in what we're saying, what we're requesting, but if, and the planning commission has to make the recommendation to the board, right? We still have to take this before them, but I would hope that you would see that as a reasonable request, but it is more than just like, let's see what happens and what kind of progress you're making, because, when you want to look at progress, Bayview, 216 units was built in just over 2 years. Our shovel in the ground was August 21st of 2021. We were done constructing 216 units by October of 2023. So that's really, really damn fast. I had so many people tell me they'd never seen a project go so fast in Traverse City. And there were a lot of reasons for that. And it was in a terrible time in terms of costs and everything else, but we did it and tried to limit the interference in doing it. So when it comes time to go, we will go. I think we proved that. But again, I hope you would consider giving us this extension, but if your recommendation is otherwise, then we have to go before the board, and I just can only appreciate and respect what you do.
So I can make it clear. So the conditional
question is on
rezoning,
the
it says
floor
the
now.
effective date, it will expire 3 years from the effective date unless substantial construction has commenced, thus vesting the conditional rezoning, or the applicant has secured an extension from the township.
So Claire, back to your comment, if this were to come forward today, can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
I guess from my perspective, this came to the planning commission when our future land use map showed showed this as low-density residential.
Okay.
We've since gone through the master plan process. The future land use map now identifies it consistent with the surrounding land as moderate to high-density residential. And so I think if we were to review it today, it would potentially not be a conditional rezoning. It would just be, rezoned, or it would be as a part of the zoning ordinance rewrite. It would, the township reviews the master plan, the zoning ordinance for consistency with the master plan. So I think that through the process that we've gone through, we have extra protections in place for, I think that that's part of the benefit to the surrounding neighbors through this conditional rezoning process, was that there are those buffers in place. There is that limit of 912 units as opposed to, it would be double that or over double that would be the potential number of units if it was just a straight rezoning. So that's the only thing that I'm mentioning.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, just to bring us back, we do have a motion supported on the table for recommendation of approval, or recommendation of the conditional rezoning being approved for the township board. Mindy?
So with this parcel not identified on our map, is my thought that that needs to be either on the map or we need to take that parcel off because it's not identified. So, or we table it until it comes back with the proper information. I didn't make the motion, I didn't second the motion, but that's my call.
Claire, would it be appropriate to add a condition to this? If it's a clerical thing, that's where my mind's at. I think it's,
Yeah, I mean, we've got the actual zoning amendment, 2-21, is on page 201 of your packet. So I would
it's in writing.
I would defer to that.
My packet's a mess, man.
Page 201.
But yeah, we can defer it for a month. Why don't we just revisit it next month?
It's written in there of the conditional rezoning, rather than just a map that was included in part of the packet. I mean, to me, that's recorded, so.
Yeah,
I've got no problem.
it is, yeah.
I agree.
It really kind of trumps the map.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, all three are written.
So there it is.
Correctly?
Yeah, so we've got 0323, 00400, 00600, and 00900.
Okay, so that's the zoning that went into effect. And looks like we need to update these.
So would you consider, Rhonda, would you consider an amendment to your motion to update the included map to,
And that's just clerical, I don't think it's necessary because
Right.
the actual
But this
amendment.
doesn't include that number in this part of the description.
Part of the tax parcel?
Yeah.
Mindy, I'm looking at 20, I think I was looking at the same thing Linda was looking at,
201.
201.
Yeah, so the first statement contains all three, but what Mindy's saying is there's a description of two of the three parcels within this.
Yeah,
and
the
not third.
description is there's a portion of that that will be rezoned to moderate density residential, not all of them.
Okay.
I mean, we could take another look at it and bring it back next month. 'Cause I don't have the other information
Okay.
right now.
I guess that would be fine.
Whatever your preference is, or you can make a recommendation to the board and you can take a look at it before the board meeting. It's just there.
Well, Mindy, you're on board.
Yeah, if you want to do that, that's fine with me, because I'll look at it again.
That's where my mind's at. Because we're gonna have, well, I guess in this case, you've got a couple weeks to iron it out yet, but
So no amendment.
no amendment necessary.
Correct.
So with that on the table, any other discussion of this motion? Okay. So because I just want to get this clear, Ann, could we please do a roll call vote?
Sure. Watson?
Yes.
Edwards?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Gonzalez?
No.
Walters?
Yes.
And Leonard?
Yes. Thank you, the motion passes. So you'll be at the next township board for further discussion on this. We appreciate your time. I'm trying to get back to where we started. Bear with me. Okay. We'll wait just a moment.
Can we look at do a 2-minute break
Yeah, we can do, yeah.
before
if-
we start the zoning thing?
Yes. Hopefully, we're toward the end. Either way, bringing it back to the Planning Commission, we're going to discuss now the next item on the agenda, which is the zoning ordinance rewrite. We've had a myriad of different updates and corrections, changes, things that were brought back to the Planning Commission for consideration from the Township Board at our meeting about a month ago. So we've had a chance to kind of review those, but Claire, if you wouldn't mind giving us the cliff notes of kind of how we got here.
Okay, so as you'll recall, the Planning Commission met jointly with the Township Board July 16th, agreed on a number of changes. There were 5 outstanding items that they agreed to revisit at a future Planning Commission work session. I will note, and I also discussed in the memo and packet, that the board discussed camping in more detail, or the temporary dwellings in more detail at their meeting last week. So there were 6 items of correspondence in your packet, as well as the additional ones that have come in since the packet went out. But I think probably it would make the most sense just to go through the 5 items that we were going to revisit in more detail one by one. The first one is bed and breakfast and where those are permitted. The second one is personal outdoor storage. The third one is ADUs and what districts those are permitted in. The fourth one is revisiting outdoor recreation and where that's permitted. And then the 5th one is temporary dwellings. So does that work for the Planning Commission?
Absolutely. Yep, I think that'd be good.
So I would say, so for the bed and breakfast, currently, bed and breakfasts are allowed in all residential districts except for natural area in Boardman River. So with the zoning ordinance rewrite as proposed, we would keep it as is and keep bed and breakfasts permitted in all those residential districts except for Boardman River and natural area, which are lower, kind of by nature and by virtue, lower intensity. So would be curious just to take the temperature on the Planning Commission if you have other feelings about that. One example is like Carl Ferguson lives in natural area, so there are some people that live in natural area, but there's not a lot of residential development in natural area.
And maybe we should go point by point, just to iron it out.
So Claire, typically, when we look at natural area and Boardman River, we include lakes area. A lot of times we will group all of those together. I don't see that we had any concerns from anybody with the lakes area, but is that something that we should permit or not?
I think that I think it's kind of consistent with the kind of the historical use of the lakes area has been kind of these bed and breakfasts and kind of family-owned places. So, while we restrict, we're not allowing cabin courts, we're not allowing, new short-term rentals until we go under the cap. I think just kind of historically, we've allowed them and have not had negative or concerns.
Okay. And are there any currently in the lakes area? Okay.
Approved one not too long ago.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a friend that owns one.
Are we feeling good about bed and breakfasts? Okay. I'd say move forward.
Okay. So the next one is the personal outdoor storage. So, and the way that's defined as the exterior storage of not more than any combination of 4 boats, trailers, campers, motorhomes, jet skis, snowmobiles, other recreation vehicles. So currently, we allow outdoor storage of, 4, not more than 4 vehicles in the ag, the lakes area, the natural area, the Boardman River. I think that we should also allow them, from my perspective, it would be reasonable to allow them also in rural residential. Those are mostly all larger parcels, and perhaps even in low-density residential if it's, a parcel size of 5 or more acres. I think that would be a reasonable.
So we'd be adding them in here.
I think part of the discussion at the last meeting was just what if you have a larger parcel than you're looking to.
How would you do that on the use rubric if you gave it a size?
And I think Joe has joined us, and I apologize, Joe, that you've sat through so much of this meeting before we got to the zoning. But I think we could, that was something we could definitely just add either as a,
Asterisk on it or something?
yeah, we could add just a
It's so
standard
tiny.
related to it.
There's Joe. How are you this evening? Hi. There we go. We're live.
Oh, you're so tiny.
So Joe, we had questions on just kind of discussion tied to outdoor storage, and we're looking at various districts and/or the application of requiring a certain minimum parcel size to have a certain number of them. Could you kind of speak toward that and the rationale tied to it?
Gotcha. So as far as, a rationale for introducing a parcel size, if you're going into other districts, I think that it would just be that the number of things that you're allowing to be stored would be kind of inappropriate for smaller lots, I guess. It's not very noticeable when you've got 5 acres, but when you get down into, more neighborhood type areas, a lot of vehicles stored on a lot suddenly becomes quite noticeable. As far as what Claire was saying about, other districts, I think that, aside from where it's already permitted, I think that, it's something that it's a change that could be easily made in the ordinance as it's currently structured.
So Joe, one of the questions I just asked, which I'm sure you didn't hear me because I don't think anybody heard me except for, was how do you put that in the rubric if there's a size limitation on it?
Well, you probably have to include the size limitation. If you've got a size limitation in one district and not others, then you would probably have to have 2 lines for it in that matrix.
Or could you put it in the definitions under outdoor storage?
Possibly, yeah. That's
Let's maybe give the policy direction to Joe, and then he can figure out the mechanism for.
yeah. We can make it happen if you're looking to have it happen.
Personally, I can think of a handful of properties right now today that have a few more than 4 on small properties. So I can totally see how this makes sense. There's nothing to say that if they're registered and legal, and Joe, maybe this is something to consider too, as far as registered and operational, because it's not uncommon for them to be registered, but still maybe, I don't know, that's kind of a slippery slope.
Yeah, addressed in our junk ordinance if they're, not operational.
But can you just speak towards also, if we're making this adjustment, what happens to properties that are out there today that have 7, 8 cars on them on a half-acre lot?
Yeah, the issue of nonconformity becomes a little trickier to deal with when you've got portable items like that. I think that if you did have lots that were consistently keeping a number of vehicles outside that exceeds the number that would be permitted in the new ordinance, ultimately that probably would be enforceable. It's kind of a matter of when it becomes enforceable. I think I'd probably have to defer to your attorney on that, but just given that these can be moved and
Well, I know we've had this.
the situation can change.
We've had this requirement for not more than the storage of 4 vehicles since at least the early 2000s.
Okay,
So-
Yeah, in the districts where it is now, yeah.
okay. So worst case scenario, it's going to be there. If it became unsightly or became brought to people's attentions, then it would still be enforceable more times than not.
But you said cars, right? Outdoor storage doesn't include cars.
Any combination of 4 boats, trailers, campers, motorhomes, jet skis, snowmobiles, and other recreational vehicles, whether owned by the property or by others, is the definition.
Most of the cars I'm speaking of would be recreational vehicles.
Okay.
They're not cars that you'd ever put on the road.
It's called blight, right?
Anywho, what's the pleasure of the board? Are you guys on board with the 5 acre or something smaller, 5 acres for 4 or more?
I have mixed feelings about that because, I mean,
Kind of big.
I owned 2.5 acres in Kingsley and it was a big lot. I mean, it's big, so I don't know. I mean, how do we,
I mean, I was even thinking 2 originally.
yeah.
I have 1, and if I dared put that much stuff, I wouldn't live there very long. It'd be a temporary dwelling for me. But that's just me.
I have a hard time visualizing size of lots, so I need some help
Well,
there.
Dan's got 1, so.
I know I've got less than an
Go
acre,
visit
and
Dan.
there's no way I could put any of that on there either. But Renee, like you said, you had 2 acres.
I had 2.5, so half of the 5, and I mean, it was sizable. I mean, I had horses on 2.5 acres in Kingsley. So,
Yeah, 5 is probably too big. I would say somewhere around like 3. Split the difference.
that'd be 2.5.
Give me
Okay.
Roll round numbers, please. So round up.
Do I hear 3? Do I hear 3?
I'm fine with 3.
Let's go with 3
Okay,
and go from there.
okay, that sounds good.
Okay, there's 2. Accessory dwelling units?
Yeah, so accessory dwelling units, right now, as you'll see, they are permitted in basically all of the districts within the growth boundary, so low-density residential, moderate-density residential, high-density residential. So the question is, should they be allowed in all districts so long as they are, one idea was so long as they're not on a parcel that includes an environmentally sensitive area. So that's something to consider if they're not located on a parcel that touches a lake, touches a wetland. I guess, so I think that would be a reasonable policy decision, is to allow them basically in any residential district, so long as it's not touching any environmentally, the parcel does not touch an environmentally sensitive area. The other thing to consider.
That includes Grand Traverse Bay.
That's a good point. So the other thing to consider is, we've had very few ADU requests, very, very few. And so I think kind of the purpose behind ADUs is to increase the housing where in our water and sewer areas. So, I mean, we could extend them outside of the urban growth boundary, but at the same time, and if we're not allowing them in the lake, on any property that touches the lake or the Boardman River, I don't think we're gonna get very many of them, so.
So I'm taking a look at the PFL comment, and they're recommending that they not be permitted in lakes, Boardman River natural area.
Yeah, and I mean, Protect Forest Lakes could speak more to that, but if you look at the lakes area, there's certainly parcels that are zoned lakes area.
Right, that are not
within
touching.
500 feet of a lake, and so
Okay.
that is one thing to consider.
Okay.
But at the same time, again, we've had very, very few requests for ADUs, and so.
So were you saying that they're only allowed where there's water and sewer?
Right now, we only allow them in low density, moderate density, and high density districts. So in some those are all within our urban growth boundary. In some instances, they're not hooked up to water and sewer.
Okay.
And they could still be permitted so long as they have health department.
Right,
you know,
okay.
they-
I just wanted clarification.
Health Department requirements related to water and.
Okay.
Well, and septic.
Right.
Back to my question. Does that include,
Yeah, so if we said that we also allow them in Lakes area, Boardman River, and natural area, so long as they're not in an environmentally sensitive area, then no, it wouldn't include the parcels on East Grand Traverse Bay. But if we say generally across all districts, they can't be in an environmentally sensitive area, then that would take out East Grand Traverse Bay parcels.
so what's the pleasure of the board?
That's what we're trying to get to.
Well, aren't we covered if we have the environmentally sensitive areas?
Well, we're saying that, we're saying the East Bay is not an environmentally
Right.
sensitive area.
Right,
Is not an environmentally,
correct. I understand that.
But if you
But it
say
should
that
be.
if you would have to be greater than 500 feet from the lake, then it would cover it.
is it 500 feet?
For environmentally sensitive areas, no.
Do you feel like we have a pretty good handle on that environmentally sensitive category?
I mean, it's not really something that you can map because you have to look at a parcel on a case-by-case basis. Like steep slopes is not something easy to map for the entire township.
I'm just gonna get my view out, so you know where I'm at. Everyone can say your piece. To be honest with you, I'm in the camp of leaving it as it is. And the rationale is tied basically to two things. One, you're not getting questions about them every day. If these were popping up as, we want permits for these every single day, then, we're running out of room, let's open it up to everywhere, like, that's one angle. Secondly, how many times have we had the conversation of how do we manage and monitor this stuff from an ordinance enforcement standpoint? And this is one where I know how busy Bill is today. I'd like to keep Bill around, and, it's one more thing where you're neighbor policing, if you will, to monitor this kind of stuff, which I don't think is,
You need a building permit, though.
yeah, it's true, but how many will pull it? Because they heard we were doing it. That's what I think about.
Well, most of our stuff is complaint driven.
That's what our system is.
99% of our enforcement is complaint driven. So,
I'd like to leave it as it is, only because I just don't want to open up another can of worms. And if we can contain it to the places where historically, someone made a comment earlier about how this has all gotten here and the history before us, I bet we're not the first to consider it, but we do allow it in certain areas. But that's just me. Throw it out
Leave it as
there.
is as well. That would be my opinion.
I concur.
Concur?
Yep.
Mindy staring at the map. Mr. Gonzalez?
What do you think, Mindy?
I mean, it keeps it out of the lakes area, natural area, Boardman River area.
What about the Grand Traverse Bay, though?
They are permitted right now on Grand Traverse Bay. They're not tied to environmentally, any water body or setbacks or anything.
So,
I mean, we also.
there has been an explosion in a town not too far from us where they've now permitted ADUs, and you drive down, those alleyways, and you see construction going on all over the place.
So,
We have a housing issue.
We've allowed ADUs for at least 7 years.
Yeah.
I think it was maybe 2008.
And we put it in there.
Maybe 2 that we've permitted. So we're not seeing the demand, and I think if we do see the demand, we can certainly revisit it in the future, but I think the districts that we permit them in is working for now.
so just to clarify, the bay, they are permitted. Are they considered an environmentally sensitive area that they have to be back 500 feet?
No, the setback from the East Grand Traverse Bay is getting increased from 45 to 50.
50, right?
Yeah, so it's not 500.
Right. But, gosh, that just seems odd that the bay wouldn't be classified that way.
It is, I just don't think we called it out when we originally
True,
came
we're
up
not
with the
calling it
ADU.
out. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. As a property owner on the bay, what do you think?
I'm thinking that if we're keeping the East Bay in conformity with the lakes area relative to certain restrictions by including making it 50 feet now, but recognize that the bay is also environmentally sensitive. So I just have an objection to say, okay, fine, this is environmentally sensitive, but that's not. That's my only point.
So would you say that we should remove East Bay from ADUs?
But we're not specifying lakes, we're saying environmentally sensitive areas.
No, if we leave it as is, it's not permitted in the lakes area.
The way it's drafted right now is it's not permitted in lakes area, Boardman River, and natural area.
The difference being that East Grand Traverse Bay is in the growth boundary,
Correct.
where the lakes area are not.
Water, they've got municipal water and sewer.
I
That's
do
what
not
I had
agree with
that. I mean, if
that.
we're really, putting another unit in a place we've already got zoned for high density, like, at least then they have to connect to water and sewer. So what other things are they gonna mitigate or cause negative harm to East Bay? That's my mindset. Like, if it's hooked up to water and sewer, then it's another unit on the bay, but,
No.
what's Tamarack? Or any of them? Right.
Yeah, we're proving these things
Right.
left and right for all these units, and we're going to argue about an ADU? Sorry,
What's
I
one
don't agree with
ADU
it.
gonna really make a difference, I guess?
That's how I feel.
Are you comfortable with that, Paul?
Oh, I'm comfortable with it. I just had,
Okay.
this issue that all of a sudden
Sudden-
East Bay is not considered to be environmentally sensitive.
Who's the one that decides that?
That's not in the ordinance right now.
Okay,
But it should be.
just curious.
Feel good about it?
I can tell you it's not us
Right,
who gets to decide that,
right,
so.
right.
Well, we have a definition of environmentally sensitive areas in the zoning ordinance, and that's how and Paul, are you saying that based on the way the ordinance is drafted, we don't, I believe that East Grand Traverse Bay is called out as an environmentally sensitive area.
It's fine, I don't have that in front of me right now, I'm just,
So we define environmentally sensitive areas as, wetlands, floodplains, parcels adjacent to Boardman River, East Grand Traverse Bay, any stream or tributary, inland lakes.
But just to be
I
clear,
believe, I don't have it in front of me, but that also doesn't have anything to do with the ADU.
thank you. Okay, so we got two different conversations, right? Environmentally sensitive areas doesn't have any bearing on ADUs at this time, as it's written.
correct.
So that's what we're all saying we're comfortable with, is leaving it as is.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And for clarification, the East Grand Traverse Bay setback is considered an environmentally sensitive area.
Thank you, Joe.
The 50 feet, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
So,
we flushed her out.
okay, you want me to move on to number 4?
I think so, if you're clear on what we're gonna do. Okay,
No change to that one.
okay.
So number 4, we were going to revisit outdoor recreation in Lakes area, natural area, and Boardman River. So currently, outdoor recreation is not permitted in any of these districts, so this would be a change in policy direction from what's currently allowed. So just wanted to take a temperature on this. You know, in our draft ordinance, we have definitions of recreational facility, of indoor recreational facility, and also of outdoor recreational facility. And so the way our ordinance is drafted right now, indoor recreational facilities, think, you know, like bowling or laser tag or something, those are permitted in our commercial and industrial districts. And then our outdoor recreational facilities are a special land use permit in all districts except Lakes area, natural area, Boardman River, and industrial. Outdoor recreational facility could include commercial playgrounds, ski lifts, archery targets, mini golf, disc golf, ice skating, extreme sports equipment and facilities, water parks, and other similar outdoor facilities.
Claire, where'd you see that definition? Because I'm in definition.
I'm looking too.
It's under recreational
Facility.
facility, and then there's facility indoor, facility outdoor.
Yeah,
Definitions.
thank you.
I had to look it up too. I was looking under indoor. I'm like, it's not there.
Not in indoor or outdoor.
So this would be a deviation from how it's currently drafted, as well as what the current ordinance that we have on the books permits.
I don't think it should be permitted in the Lakes area.
So would this include like, snowmobile rentals?
That would be sports.
I would think so.
And so, you know, we've got playground, maybe it's just the definition that we need to change and get some of those things out of there, if you will, because I think that we should have playgrounds in the park, in the Lakes area.
And we do. There's plenty of county parks, yeah.
And we do allow private parks in all zoning districts, and private parks are defined differently than outdoor recreation. Private
Yeah.
parks and public parks in all districts. And I believe the way that private parks are defined is that they're like an accessory use to,
So just to be crazy here, what if a Boy Scout camp wanted to move into a choice piece of property that's in the Lakes District
Right,
and reopen? Are we gonna say that you can't do that anymore?
that's kind of my concern here.
It's already made for it and been historically doing it forever.
Right.
Camp Grylick?
Yeah,
because they rented that for,
Yep,
many, many generations, decades.
that's my point, is
Right, but the.
Yeah, I think that would be qualified as a camp or campground though. Wouldn't it?
What's Timber Ridge?
Because that's listed separately.
Is that in the lakes?
No.
Lakes, natural area, and ag, and camps and campgrounds are.
that's in the Lakes area, zoned local business.
So he rents snowmobiles. Could he continue to do that if we say this is not allowed in the Lakes
Yeah,
area?
he's not zoned Lakes area.
Okay.
They're zoned local business.
Oh, I'm sorry, you said local business. Okay. My apologies.
but yes, that's exactly what I'm thinking of.
So the two areas that currently do allow equipment rental could continue if an outdoor recreational facility is not allowed in the lakes.
I'm for keeping it the same.
Leaving it out on the lakes.
Is it camp? I apologize for my ignorance on this. Is a campground allowed in those?
It is. Camps and campground are allowed in natural area and lakes area.
Okay.
Special land use permit.
Okay. So this is kind of more like your commercial uses for, I want to rent pontoons on Rennie Lake, or I want to rent kayaks on the Boardman, or I want to rent an archery facility in the Lakes District. I'm trying to think of all the different things that someone might hit us up
This is
with.
so broad. It goes from
I know.
disc golf
Right.
Skating?
to water parks. I agree the water parks have a very specific place for them, but I don't think a disc golf course in the lakes area is going to be detrimental to the lakes area if it's,
Right.
done right, if you will, right? So,
Well, there's one that exists at Camp Graylick today that the county parks and recs want to keep. So would that be allowed?
Well,
Because they're,
public parks are a use permitted by right in all
Okay.
districts.
So that would be-
As
okay.
long as it's operated by a public entity, it would be
Perfect.
fine.
Okay, thank you.
If a private entity came in and wanted to open disc golf, the way the ordinance is drafted, they would not be permitted to do that.
okay.
I'm with you, Mindy. I'm looking at this thinking it's very wide open. But doesn't give Joe a whole lot of direction.
Yeah. Joe, is there a way to split this?
Can we do a minor and a major?
Yeah, you potentially could.
Based
That's
on
certainly something we could look at.
users? I don't even know. Based on
I can't
what?
imagine a water park in the lakes area. I mean, we're already having challenges with that up in Leelanau County, right?
Right.
Well, ski lifts is in here, but I'm also thinking that cross-country skiing, or snowshoeing, or ice fishing, those are all out too.
The rental of that
Yeah, so
equipment?
it's
you
really,
mean?
it's a commercial operation.
Yeah.
So you're talking
It's a
about the
policy
rental.
decision of whether or not you want a commercial operation. So along with that, that would be, parking, buildings, kind of everything that goes along with a commercial operation. So it's
Right,
really-
sure.
It's really a policy decision, but it's not necessarily saying people can't go out and ice skate or, have a communal ice skating rink or those types of things. It's more a commercial operation that
So Mindy, when you think people are like renting, cross-country skis or they're renting snowshoes, they're typically going to places like, I think, Brick Wheels and some of those other places that do rent and then taking them to whatever trail they want to use. So to your point, Claire, this would be a formal commercial operation within the district, making those rental sales, whatever.
Yeah, it would be a land use, so kind of whatever goes along with the land use, it'd be a commercial site plan review. Parking, probably a building.
So it's not been allowed in the lakes area historically, and has there ever been a request for anything like this in the lakes area?
I would think
Historically?
so. I can't think of anything.
Yeah, I
off
can't,
the
okay.
top of my head,
Just
so
asking.
I would think there would be interest.
Okay.
I'm fine with leaving it as we're seeing it now, and that if something comes up, we can consider it, if you will, because I'm thinking this is very broad. But if it's not something that we're seeing as an issue at this time, I don't see why we should open it up.
Same rationale as before, yeah, make it easy, that is for sure. Haven't been getting very many requests for water parks in the Lakes District.
I've already stated I'd leave it the way it is.
Yeah.
What do you think, Steve? Yeah.
His eyes are open.
Okay.
Well, I guess temporary dwelling is our last one. So we've had quite a bit of discussion about reevaluating the number of days permitted, also limits on parcel size. So I did take a look at some of the surrounding communities and had some conversations with some of our neighbors. So I looked at Long Lake Township. So Long Lake Township allows camping. You can stay in your camper on your property up to 30 days. Beyond 30 days, temporary dwellings are permitted for up to 6 months, so long as water and waste are approved by the health department. They will not be detrimental to surrounding uses. So Long Lake Township is, to me, fairly lax on that. Garfield Township, Blair Township, Paradise Township, they all allow for basically a permit for staying on your property up to a year during home construction. So you can't have like friend camping there, those types of things. But if you're building your home specifically, they can issue a permit up to a year.
I assume that's with water and sewer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Not necessarily water and sewer, but approved management system,
Okay.
whether it's well and septic. Or,
Right. That's
Okay.
fairly common. I've seen that in quite a few communities.
Okay.
Whitewater Township is more lax. They allow for up to 120 days a year of camping in whatever, however you want to dice that up. Acme Township, Elmwood Township, it's not permitted in either one of those. I think Peninsula as well, not permitted, but I would need to double check that. Also looked at some communities a little bit farther away, Torch Lake Township, they allow for up to 6 months, similarly for construction, or if there was a fire or some other type of thing, but you need to actually get a permit to camp on your property. Banks Township is more similar to what, and that's in Charlevoix County, they're more similar to what we drafted. They allow for up to 15 consecutive days and not more than 60 days in a calendar year. So I think we've got some policy options. We could say, you know what, let's just table this and revisit it at another time. Just take it out of the ordinance completely. That would be one policy option. We could also reduce the number of days that are permitted per calendar year. So right now we're at 60, we could bump it down to 30. We could also set a minimum parcel size requirement of whether that's 2 acres, 5 acres, something like that. We could also look at, for longer durations, just having it permitted through Planning and Zoning Department. And so if you do have a fire in your home, you're building your house, something like that, you could get a, 6-month or 1-year permit for that. So I think, from my perspective, those are some of the policy options that we can take a look at. And
I can give you another one.
Interested in hearing, what?
I can give you another one.
What?
You keep it the way it is, but you drop out number 2 and number 3. You just say, you can have it for itinerant farm laborers.
Okay.
So in other words, you
That's how
got.
it actually is right now in our current ordinance.
Right.
Yeah.
But number 2, man, that one you can drive a tank through. And I think that this has got problems written all over it for the future.
Policy option would be just taking it out of the ordinance completely.
Well, that's the first one, but I have to consider the fact that you do have some issues there where you do have farm workers.
Yeah, so I guess, so I should revise that policy option to just keep it as is in the current ordinance. That's what's on the books. And revisit it at a later date.
You can always liberalize, you can't go back.
Well, you can, but it's more difficult.
Good answer.
I agree with that. I agree with that. But, you know, we have history here where we saw things happening and decided that we wouldn't, and it happened, so.
So are you?
If you take two,
I'm leaving with the current. The current ordinance, where we are.
Camping is not allowed,
the
except for
camping-
farm workers.
Nope, not allowed, but you do have the ability if you have farm workers.
So I have to tell my neighbor to quit setting up his tent in his front yard so he can camp with his kids? I'm not in favor of that. Sorry. It's a night here and there, doesn't bother me one bit. I think it's cool as heck that he's doing that with his kids, and now he's gonna, I don't know.
I mean, I would say.
So restrictive.
If we kept the ordinance as is, nobody's going to enforce camping in a tent with kids. So I think.
I don't know, we've made an awful big hoopla about it. I bet you they do.
Remember, it's a complaint-driven system, so somebody would have to complain, right?
And somebody will,
For sure.
because that's just how it works.
Unfortunately, that's how zoning works, right?
I just think it's very restrictive the way it is currently. I'm 100% in agreement that that we should be careful about opening Pandora's box or not being able to put it back. But I just think it's way too restrictive the way it is right now. It's my opinion.
I agree with that. I have a hard time telling people
Yeah.
what they can do with their
Yeah,
property for a little bit.
yeah. And we're talking short-term here, very short-term. I mean, I didn't think our numbers that we put in were, 7 days and, okay, so we maybe make the max 30 versus 60, but
Even
Then
then,
how are we
I have a
gonna
hard time
enforce
doing
it?
that.
who's enforcing it now? Nobody. It's based on complaint. You said it yourself.
No, that's,
So that's just how I feel.
right,
I'm
that's
all-
how enforcement works, unfortunately.
I get that.
I am at the point, though, where it's like maybe for the time being, it's removed, and we work on expanding it, so it is, because I can understand the whole, half-acre lot, someone posting up in a
Yeah.
lake, I get that, but also, you got someone with 7 acres, and they want to have some people over to camp, let them camp.
Yeah. That one really hits me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big time.
What do you think?
I think we should leave it as is right now with the goal that we bring it back and talk about it more in depth with talking about sizes and permit. Because, if somebody loses their house to a fire and needs to sleep in their trailer to make things work, I am not opposed to them using their property to live on while they redo their house or building a house, And I do like the permit condition, especially with the health department approved water and sewer. I really like that, and I don't know how we deal with the kids camping in their front or backyard, because that, we all did it. We all done it with our kids. And I don't think that this is against that, but it's not specifically allowed, so it's not allowed. I don't know how to say that better, but, I think we have to figure out a way to do that as well, that we can allow for the kids to go camping in their yard, and the temporary use of the trailer in the driveway for the kids to, maybe it's not a tent, maybe it's your camper, and the kids are sleeping in the camper for a night or two, or whatever. It's a different, it's a different animal if you own the property and you live there versus having a piece of property that's, vacant and everybody just shows up for
Right.
a party. I think there's there's other criteria that we're gonna need to roll in there first, but I think instead of holding up the whole rewrite, that we leave it as it is right now, and then I'll say figure it out later, but I think we do need to figure it out, because I do think that we have to let people use their property, but we just need to make it have more common sense in it, if you will.
Okay.
And I think that maybe maybe it's not just the people that own, I'm going deep now, but.
I mean, you could.
Every good thing, every good
Something.
every good intention will turn around and have some bad actor
Sure.
on that. And I think that this one, as it's written right now, is begging to be abused. So, I again would say that leave it the way it is, and certainly let's not hold up the process, but at the same time, let's, investigate other things that we can do to allow for little Johnny and Jim to have their camping trip in the backyard. I mean, there's a big difference between having something like that where the people are there versus having every, weekend or whatever, my friends have come up. And there are some places that it's always amazing when things happen. It's always, oh, it's my friend. And that's the part that I have an objection to.
So maybe I'll put it on the agenda for this winter to revisit. We've got a couple. Is that good timing? No?
We have nothing to do, so let's get at it.
We've got signs, billboards, and transient activity for September. So I would
Just
say probably winter would be.
Wrap it in there, no problem.
Yeah.
No problem.
Billboard one right now.
Sounds good.
Don't let perfect get in the way of good. Okay, I feel like we've crushed all 5.
So I just wanted to bring up a couple things based on public comment and PFL. So the marina, so it looks like our definition matches Eagle. So I pulled that up online, word for word. And so it's only allowed on East Bay. Okay, so that would address their concerns there. Regarding accessory uses, there is a concern that we removed, it looks like a full sentence, and they're asking that to be reinstated. And that sentence is, an accessory use shall not generate any effects on neighboring properties, including but not limited to noise, parking, traffic glare, or dust greater than or more burdensome than such impacts on the main use of the property. Is there an opportunity for that?
Yeah, so that was based on legal counsel recommendation to take that out.
Oh.
And it was through a ZBA variance that was appealed to Circuit Court involving TC Water Sports and taking a look at whether or not TC Water Sports was an accessory use to the hotel. So
Okay.
our legal counsel advised us that that was a very problematic sentence to have in our ordinance. So that's why we took it out.
Can we have legal counsel look at something that talks about the effect on neighboring properties? That they think is more appropriate?
Yeah, we can.
So not necessarily like in the business district, but in residential areas.
Yeah.
Yeah, Claire, I wonder if they would be okay with us doing it for residential accessory uses, but just being specific that it's for residential accessory uses.
Yeah, we can circle back with legal counsel.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going through my notes here, sorry. We also have a concern with the retaining walls in the Forest Lakes overlay. So there is a concern about retaining walls, and we talked about this at our last meeting, about the need maybe to secure a slope when building a property. So,
Are we gonna put that in the parking lot with like permeable pavers and other,
Yeah, so right.
Low
right
impact
now,
design
the
tools.
ordinance as drafted is that we just defer to soil erosion, so anyone can come in and put in a retaining wall, and what we're seeing is that we're getting a ton of retaining walls that are going in as part of the landscaping, so they want a patio, they've got retaining wall, it's tremendous amount of earth movement and alteration of the shoreline, vegetation removal. So this provision, the intent was to acknowledge that in some instances, you have a home, you've got, some critical infrastructure, and retaining walls in some instances are necessary from an engineering standpoint. In talking with our township engineer, that was their recommendation, to have it reviewed by township engineer to ensure that the proposed retaining wall was structurally critical to the that it wasn't just put there so that there could be a patio or recreation space to sit or other aesthetic reasons.
or park an RV.
And that's supposed to be outside of our setback and all that stuff, correct?
The retaining wall can be within the
Within.
50-foot setback, but it just can't be, it just would need to have basically verification from the engineer that it was necessary. I mean, we have a lot of homes right now that are within the 50-foot setback.
Old cottages. and
Just
stuff.
curiosity, though, going the other way, when you have high water situations, especially in the last couple of years, and on East Bay, and people have to put down some, like, let's go riprap or rock or something to protect the property from, does that fall under this item?
It
Or is-
doesn't, because in our ordinance, we've differentiated retaining walls from like a seawall.
Yeah.
So the seawalls are, and I can't remember the exact terminology we use, but that's anything waterward of the ordinary high water mark, which is permitted by Eagle.
Yeah, I was
Not
thinking
permitted by the
something,
township. Yeah.
there was something
Yeah,
there
so
about
The
that.
retaining wall is anything that's landward of the ordinary high
Okay.
water mark.
I think that was all we've got, but Bill, our esteemed zoning administrator, wanted to make a comment on this as well.
If you don't mind.
Perfect timing.
What I've been seeing with the retaining walls, Claire mentioned a lot of houses are built within a 50-foot setback, and there's a lot of retaining walls that they're built, right? And I've seen, many of them starting to fail, and so, a lot of slopes are pretty severe, so just take that into mind when you're, thinking about those retaining walls. Some of them are being rebuilt right now that, with the soil health department, issued a permit to build some of those retaining walls that they could have a complete slope failure if they're not rebuilt, so.
So those are rebuilds, those are of existing, okay. But yeah, that's fair, but clarifying new retaining walls, right?
Well, our ordinance doesn't allow the rebuilding of a legal non-conforming structure within the sensitive environmental area.
Okay.
So we wouldn't be able to permit that, the retaining wall to be rebuilt.
But what Bill just said is they are being rebuilt, right?
I'm sorry.
Okay,
Not right within that 50 feet.
Okay.
But there's retaining walls that are being built that,
Or we're also seeing them just not rebuilding them,
Right.
but improving them, or
planting or something to help stabilize the slope? Not quick enough, okay. So, I'm struggling with that one a little bit. Anybody else?
No.
No? No?
I think when you're talking about critical facilities and structural, I mean,
Versus just simply landscaping.
If an engineer's got to look at it and you're putting a flower bed there, you might be like, maybe you don't need this flower bed right here.
Okay.
Claire, do you
A
feel?
lot of notes, I'm still going through, but you guys talk.
That's okay. We're going to have other planning commission meetings, believe me. And it sounds like we're going to have a parking lot full of things to discuss because I think there were a handful that were brought up during our township board meeting that we specifically said we were going to parking lot, get this ordinance through, kind of come back.
We're already setting the agenda for the winter, so what the...
Seriously, seriously. So if we get one more,
Two-meeting thing goes away, I'm fine with that.
that's right.
Well, we just need to get less development going on so we can do these.
Sure. So timing-wise, with these adjustments, Joe, you feel confident we can get these before the board in like a week?
No,
Board doesn't meet.
I'm sorry.
No, no.
We would not be able to hold a public hearing for September 3rd meeting, just because we don't have time to notice it. So we can either do a special meeting in September, or we can just notice for public hearing for your regular October meeting, and I think that would be totally appropriate, and so it's really your call. If we're looking to go back to one meeting a month, I think you could just notice the public hearing for your October meeting.
Which would be the...
October 1, I think. Is that a big day?
Yeah, October 1st.
So we could get these wrapped up by 2 weeks before October 1st, mid-September,
Yeah, absolutely.
we'd be in the clear.
Yep, no problem.
Okay. I'm going to move on. We're under number 9, public comment round 2.
Do you want to set a public hearing for
Oh.
October 1? Is that the
Do you want us to?
preference of the planning commission, or would you rather have a public hearing during a special meeting?
Do we have enough material for a
Yeah.
special meeting, or would that simply be the main?
The public hearing.
We talked to her.
Yeah, you think it should be a one-off?
Because of the volume?
I will say that having this other piece of business before this kind of made it a little long. It could get a little long next time too, but who knows? I don't
Would that
know.
be the only thing on the agenda for that special meeting? Not gonna slide something else in? Just Kathy?
Hope not.
Okay, just asking.
Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, that's good. Let's do it.
Special meeting or October 1st?
And I was like, which one?
I think October 1st.
I don't think there's going to be any large developments
No, I mean,
for October 1, so.
yeah. Boom.
So essentially, that would be the only thing on the October agenda too, correct?
I don't know for sure. I have a few, I think if there is something else on the October agenda, it's going to be a smaller site plan. It's not going to be like an Elmbrook site plan review.
I'm thinking, I'm in your camp. I think to give Joe a little leeway and get it right, buy him a little grace, and only have one meeting. What do you think, Steve?
I think I'll be here October 1.
Punt. Rhonda, are you, oh, go ahead.
I'm good with either.
Okay.
I'm good with either.
Let's roll the dice. Let's just go with October 1, see how it goes.
Done.
I'm fine with that.
See how it goes. We good? Okay.
You don't need to recommend it to the township board at that meeting. You hold a public hearing, you can always deliberate and recommend it at the following meeting, so.
Got it. Joe, thank you for joining us. I think you're off the hook.
Certainly, have a good night.
So, sorry for the late night.
That's all right. Take care, everybody.
Thank
Yep,
you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, public comment round 2. Any takers?
Do you need my name again? Gail Mason, Willsey Road. First of all, note to self, next time, bring a jacket. It's freezing in here.
Yes,
You
it
guys could
is.
save some money if you turn the temperature up a
It's
little bit.
cold.
It's crazy cold. Thank you to those who acknowledge that there is a difference. We don't all wear say the same shoe size. We don't all fit the same mold. And I appreciate the fact that you are going to revisit revising the temporary dwelling ordinance. So I thank you for that. In regards to something else that was talked about, school buses in this new development over here, I'm a retired 20-year bus driver from TCAPS. You can call TCAPS and tell them what you're doing, and they will change their bus stop locations. If you've got spots you think are better, they'll look at them. They do have laws they have to abide by. There's distances, but a lot has changed in the last 10 or 15 years, and there's a lot more they can do to accommodate you and your families and your kids. The gentleman, I think he left, that was concerned about kids walking to school. Kids don't walk to school. They either ride the bus, about 50% of them, the rest of them get driven by mommy or daddy. So that, I don't think, is going to be an issue. But school buses, your idea about painting across the road, great idea. Kids will ignore it. I'm just telling you from experience. Great idea to come out with the kids to the bus stop. And I can tell you from 20 years of experience, there's maybe 2 parents per 100 kids that actually come out to the bus stop. And if parents are concerned about the safety of their kids getting to the bus stop, they need to get their shoes on and get out there with the kids. But call TCAPS. They're more than happy to work with you. Absolutely. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
I'm still Glenn, still live on Holiday Road, I think, but I wanted to thank you guys for taking another look at that. Something I would like to suggest is, how are you going to enforce it if we have it? Relying on somebody getting mad at their neighbor and calling in, I don't think is the way that's going to work. Because you're going to have a lot of it going on without anybody calling in. And somebody else, their neighbor may be mad at them, they'll call in after the person's been there one day. There are a lot of things I thought about on this, if not me, I'm not gonna have a trailer, but if somebody owns the trailer, they set it up, how are you gonna know who was in there for 7 days? Maybe they're there for 2-3 weeks, you don't know. And so my biggest thing is, any laws or rules that are passed, we got to make sure we figure out how we're going to enforce them fairly across the board. And there's some laws you're not going to be able to enforce. Maybe we don't need that law. But anyhow, thank you very much.
Thank you, Glenn. You just signed up for a task force to further look into that item.
Judy Nemitz, East Bay Township. I like the idea of a task force, possibly. It wasn't mentioned either, the temporary dwellings, that you could also look at things by zone. That's why we have zoning. Enforcement, I'd like to talk about that, too. Michigan is one of the only states in the union that allows SLAPP lawsuits. There is a bill before the Michigan Congress right now to stop those SLAPP lawsuits. And what those are when you do file a complaint, you can be slapped with a lawsuit as a citizen. And so a complaint-driven system is scary for the normal citizen. It's very expensive to fight a lawsuit. Until that changes, I'm not sure if the citizen complaint system is going to work in any way. So people have, in this township, experienced the SLAPP lawsuits or been involved in some way. So I just want to bring that to your attention. And when we talk about education, The township sends out a newsletter twice a year with your taxes, so everybody's looking at the tax bill and maybe not reading the newsletter. So I think we could improve upon some educational things in that realm somehow. And then please note that we do have I think we have a great ordinance, and I believe it's transferred over. Right now, it's Section 645 is campgrounds in your book right now. And there's about, if I recall, I don't have it in front of me any longer, but there's about 10 things. And one of the things is state licensure for a certain number of sites. So it's not only the township that's looking at these kind of things to meet a standardization. The state also asks you to apply for a license. And I think the rules that you have are excellent, like hours, noise, things like that in your 645. It's pretty well written, so I appreciate you just transferring that over. So thank you very much for your time. I know this is tedious, but it does look like the end is in sight. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Greg Plaza, East Bay Township. So many complex things are being addressed by this committee as well as the trustees in terms of the complexities of this rewrite and other public input earlier in the process. Topic which is very important was brought up, and I've seen no action for the ordinance rewrite at this time, but I think we need to seriously consider it because it seriously affects the health and welfare of not only our ecosystem, but the population at large. And, this last fall, I went to the Freshwater Summit, which is an annual event held in Traverse City in the fall of 2023. And there was a presentation by the Tip of the Mitt Watershed of a septic survey, and it was on a lakeshore property study, Lake Charlevoix as well. It was sponsored by that Lake Association, CMU, and the Northwest Michigan Health Department. And the survey really, gave very surprising and bothersome data in terms of results. I think if you're not aware of it, we all should be. The survey revealed that only 40% of property owners pump septics within the recommended time frame of every 3 to 5 years. 5% hadn't pumped it in over 10 years. 22% didn't know when it was last serviced, and 6% never had it pumped at all for their recollection. Most of the symptoms were quite old. 35% were older than 25 years, and 10%, 25 years, and another 10% over 35 years. 8% of patients, of the people didn't know how old their septic systems were. Other surveys have revealed property owners, a percentage of 3 to 5% didn't even know they had septic systems, which is concerning. The Lakeshore study part of that presentation, they looked at the effects at the lakeshore, surface water, as well as groundwater boring samples, as well as nutrient analysis, and very bothersome changes. They assessed biological parameters, most importantly looking at E. coli cultured from surface water in front of the property, as well as from the groundwater, and from the shoreline in that area. 75% had E. coli grown in culture from the surface water, 40% had E. coli cultured from the groundwater. They also assessed nutrients such as nitrogen and phosphorus at the sites. And like 75% of those sites had nutrients of nitrogen that were above the recommended levels and 25% above the limits for phosphorus, and those parameters were greater than 0.03 milligrams per liter.
You're at 3 minutes.
And those properties that were tested had frequent fecal contamination. We need to be aware of that if we want to protect not only lakeshore residents, but all of the residents in this county in township that are on septic and also use wells. And these are important considerations for this township for the health and welfare of its citizens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you. Jill Bernardi, East Bay Township. One of our local townships in Kalkaska County, on the front page of their zoning ordinance and on the front page of their township website, and they are way smaller than us, says Blue Lake Township has exacted a zoning ordinance which helps control construction of buildings in the lake area. If you're planning to build a garage on your home or deck or any other type of construction, please contact our zoning administrator for the proper permits, especially if your home is on the water or a green, I'm trying to hurry, on the water. If your home is on the water, a greenbelt ordinance, which is part of our zoning ordinance, limits what can be done on that strip of land within 50 feet. This natural greenbelt buffer zone is set to help with the blah, blah, blah materials, blah, blah, blah. Except for removable docks and the removal of selected trees with a permit, construction of any type is not permitted in this area. Even lawns down to the showroom are not recommended because excess rainwater can drain directly to the lake. I fumbled through that, obviously, but the point is, how hard is it to put it right on there? I mean, these people, I don't even know if they have all their teeth, and they figured out how to put it on their website. I grew up there, so I can say that. So, as we're looking for solutions, I love that I finally made you laugh. When we're looking for solutions up here, please come to the next meeting with one. Don't, a lot of you guys are doing that, but look at all the people here. We have all these people that have all these solutions, and some of you guys don't even bring it up. So please, come to a solution. Don't tell us, no, I appreciate everything you do, but some of you need to come here with a solution. You're supposed to be better at this, I'm not looking at you for sure, than we are. So we can get it done faster. You don't have to work 2 meetings a night. We're all busy. But why don't you come with something, okay? Like bioengineering. Put bioengineering on the ordinance is the first place you need to go instead of going somewhere else like a wall or something. Put bioengineering in there so people say, I wonder what bioengineering is. Do stuff like that. Everything else is great. I appreciate everything you're doing. I'm not complaining, but I'm saying we can do little simple things to keep it simple and bring it to these people's attention that don't hang out at the meetings like we do. Because I think between this room, we're the only people reading this stuff. So anyway, thank you for everything you do. Thank you for paying attention. And yeah, if you need me to bring anything else to you, I'm happy to. All right, have a good night.
Thank you. Going once, going twice. Oh, damn it, Mindy. Upcoming meeting dates now. Go ahead, Mindy. What do you think?
Pickleball with cops, Grace McDonald Park tomorrow, 5 to 6 p.m.
Oh.
Pickleball with the cop, Grace McDonald Park,
What time was that?
5 to 6 p.m.
5 to 6. All right. All right.
Page of our website.
Good spot for it, too. Well advertised. Any other comments from the crew? If not, our next regular planning commission meeting is September 3rd. They just keep coming at 6:30. We won't be having our September 17th one that was tentative. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. At 9:40.